W239BF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Bills 27, Patriots 21.
But how fun is this? Buffalo at Miami for the division.
For the AFC East Division crown in South Florida. And it's going to be for the number 2 seed in the AFC.
Sunday night football.
I'm going to Miami.
Josh has done great against Miami. McDermott seems to have the way to neutralize Tyreek Hill. What a great comeback that would be, and a great story if we can go into Miami and win it.
Touchdown Miami!
Their schematics are almost revolutionary.
Say you're on a revolution.
Mike Danger.
You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia, back from our long holiday break, and also Happy New Year to you and yours. The calendar flips to 2024.
Gene Battaglia.
This is it for Buffalo. There are no excuses now. You have this division within your sights. This should be the AFC East now for the Buffalo Bills, hands down.
So it'll be Washington and Michigan for the national championship.
We cracking a 3-0 win over Vegas at the Winter Classic.
Here we are.
Let's go. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Well. Good afternoon. Welcome on into the Sports Bar. Pull up a stool and join us. It's Danger and Battaglia. Glad you're with us and listening along, however you may be doing so, locally at 95.7 FM. AM 950, the Fan Rochester sounds its best in the free-to-download Odyssey app. We've got the video stream up at the Fan Rochester on YouTube and on Twitch as well. And you can get us on your smart device when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan. I'm Danger. That's Battaglia. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, buddy. How are you?
What's the statute of limitations for Happy New Year? Do you give the rest of the week?
I think so. I think if you haven't seen anybody for like a week, I think a week is good.
A week?
A week is good.
Yeah, I'm saying Friday. Friday's my deadline. Friday is the cutoff. And if I haven't talked to you by Friday, you probably don't deserve a Happy New Year. Some people will extend it to the middle of the month. And that just tells you they don't reach out to you enough. You're not that close to that person. Happy New Year, Friday deadline.
Buddy, I need you to carry me today here, if you can tell.
No way.
We're back to 2019 here where, like, hey, we work when we're under the weather here.
Yeah. You're battling symptoms. You're not COVID.
No, I'm not COVID.
But you know, so many of us during the holidays battled symptoms. Colds or flu. It's the season. It's the season for symptoms. And if you think I'm going to carry you, well, that's where you're wrong. Because right out of the gate, I would like to say, I'm just happy that Gene Rockefeller decided to show up today after claiming the unsanctioned crown in Survivor football, in guillotine fantasy football. An unbelievable season was had by Gene Battaglia.
Were you pulling for me or Brian?
Brian.
Yeah, I figured.
Brian, all day. Brian from East Tilton was sending me direct messages going, here we go. It's me and Gino. He told me everything. He told me everything that was going on. He said, look, my brother thinks I should have him split the winnings.
So I get a DM from Brian. Now, we've all been in this position, right? If you've got a pot that's worth something, all right, do you want to split this or not? And previously, I was in that position. I said no. But I know Brian. He's got kids. So he sends me this, just a screenshot of what his brother said. Hey, you should offer Gene 50-50. No, I don't think that's... What fun is that, 50-50? Or just calling it all off at that? Like, look, I'll do 75-25 if you want.
Gene, the sales guy, the negotiator. We got to get a better deal.
Then Brian... hits me back with my own quote. What you say on the show, hedgers are losers. Yeah, we're going all in.
That's right. And you
smoked
Brian,
him. Look, C.D. Lamb smoked him.
Yeah.
Oh, that was relaxing to watch.
Well, the third person who was remaining, Commissioner Tim, who's taken over the unsanctioned for us, was the third person. And he was texting me worried because he had Diggs. And Diggs, as we're going to talk about here this afternoon in the Sports Bar, if you haven't noticed, I don't know if you've seen, Diggs' production is down. And he was worried, and sure enough, Diggs was part of the reason why he was eliminated heading into last weekend's action, leaving you and Brian from East Tilton. And you picked up Diggs, and you started Diggs.
It was either Diggs or Puka Nacua. And Nakua's having a great year. I get that. I just thought, hey, Diggs is due.
He's due.
He's way overdue.
Sure.
Oh, and by the way, if Josh Allen throws the ball, again, it's not an easy pass, but if he hits him, that's an 80-yard touchdown and made the right call. No, thank you. If you have a chance to get into a guillotine league, do it. It's a different strategy. It's a different way of looking at fantasy football. And I like how you mentioned, you called it Survivor. That's essentially what it is. It's Survive in Advance here, but just in
fantasy
terms.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're unfamiliar with guillotine fantasy football, your goal every week is to not finish in last place, to not have the lowest total points scored. If you do, you get chopped from the league, and your entire roster goes to the waiver wire for free agent bidding to begin, and other teams can scoop up those players. So imagine a world where in week 1, your team is the lowest scoring team, but you happen to have Christian McCaffrey. Well, then Christian McCaffrey is a free agent going into week 2. It's just a different layer of excitement and strategy and enthusiasm. I give you credit. I've never made it. I don't even know that I've ever made it into, maybe I made it into December last year, but you got it all. You finished it out.
Yeah, there's a few phases on this because my advice to anybody, don't spend your money week 1 or week 2. You need to save that money for the buys when you're okay.
But
I'm really
conversely, others would say by investing early on a free agent acquisition, you get more bang for your buck, longer term value on that person. If you let's say AJ Brown was available week 1 and you invested 30% of your budget on AJ Brown and you get production out of AJ Brown for a good chunk of the season, that's a value.
True, but there's going to be guys every week that are going up. So you just have to kind of rely on seeing the value when it's there. And then when you get in a pickle, that then you can outbid somebody. That's how it ended up for me here. And when it gets to the end, it's like, okay, we're playing 2 all-star teams here, basically.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and you mentioned CeeDee Lamb, and that was the guy that was carrying me through the majority of the season. I had CeeDee Lamb, and CeeDee Lamb did very well for me until I think those bye weeks caught up to me, and that was what led to my demise in the unsanctioned this year. But Gino wears the crown. Now, please, just tell me that you're not going to be insufferable about this. I don't want you around here peacocking. I don't want you. We don't have to dedicate a segment now during football season about guillotine football now that you've won it, right? We
could just look at my resume, like when it comes to March Madness or when it comes to guillotine, when it comes to Survive in Advance. Now, Survive in Advance, it's getting a little Al Davis-ish. I want to get back on the board for that. I mean, the last one was 2015. That's too long ago. And I, by the way, Commissioner Tim, I graciously accept your offer. He wants to come down and present me with the PR phony check.
Yeah, you wanted to get
absolutely.
We had our annual Goomball lunch. I don't know if I talk about the guys in my neighborhood ever. You hear me talk about those guys ever? My neighborhood guys.
I can only imagine what the conversation is over linguine there at the
well, one of the parts of the conversation was Commissioner Tim leaning over going, hey, we should get a giant check, and I'll stop by and we'll present it to Gene, and I'm like, don't make this any worse than it already is, man. He's going to be insufferable for the next 12 months having this win on his resume.
Present it like it should belong right here so everybody knows.
We have a rule.
Credibility.
No, we don't have any external things hanging in the studio. We don't like clutter in these studios.
We have an Amerks Division banner over there.
We're not hanging a giant check in place of the Amerks Division banner, Gino. Yeah, we had some plans, and those plans didn't come to fruition. Maybe they will. Maybe he'll stop by and drop off a giant check. I don't expect him to do that. That would fall on me, and I'm not really willing to go to a craft store and look for a giant prop check just to present it to you to make your head and your ego even more inflated than it already is.
Well, to answer your question, will I be insufferable? Define insufferable.
The answer is yes.
Yeah, I will just every once in a while remind you.
Yeah, the answer is yes.
Just kind of,
and nobody cares when you're right, Gene. Nobody.
All right. Okay. With that being said, you way back when said before the season it's going to come down to week 18 for the division. Ta-da.
Yeah. I'm not boasting about that. I would have much rather, but in true Sean McDermott era Bills fashion, nothing is easy. Nothing is easy with these guys. I mean, you want them to put some distance between themselves and everybody else. And I know there are a lot of people that view the Bills right now as the third best team in the league. You could make that argument. the third best team in the league might not make the postseason because nothing has been easy for these guys this year. It's the margin of error is just so razor thin, and it almost bit them again on Sunday. We weren't here for the Chargers reaction. I can't even imagine. Like, the first quarter of that Chargers game felt catastrophic. What? How is Easton Stick beating this team? What is going on? But it does come down to Sunday night, and everything has laid out and played its way into this scenario where, despite all the shortcomings of this season, the Bills can still win the AFC East. They can be as high as a 2 seed when it's all said and done.
We did a show over the summer, and you talked about, all right, what should be the goal? What would satisfy you? And I said Super Bowl, and you're like, nothing else? No. Like, there's no nuance to that? No. So it's very fitting for me that in a year where I said it was all or nothing, this is the all or nothing scenario, because I am not counting on the Ravens backups to win. I am not counting on Mike Vrabel.
No. Go out there and beat a team that just got blown out by 40. That's your mission. Can you do that? Don't worry about scoreboard watching. There was scoreboard watching happening on Sunday. It's like, why? Why do you care about the outcome of Cincinnati and Kansas City? Who cares?
Not in Buffalo. There weren't. Like, McDermott ordered all scores down this week. Yeah, so.
Good. Like, handle your business. Do what you got to do. And what you got to do now is go in on Sunday night into Miami and beat a team that you've had success with. I don't think it's going to be easy. And I don't really know which direction I'm leaning right now, because based on how they've played the last 2 weeks, it's really hard for me to see the Bills going into Miami and beating that team. Although Miami is beat up and there are some injuries that they're dealing with, there are still a lot of concerns. And we'll address those through the course of the week here in the Sports Bar.
What am I looking at this? Did you see Jack's message to us on X?
Is that his real name?
Yeah, it is his real name.
Oh.
Gene should be awarded a championship belt. Check out the lower right corner on the photos of our receiving department bulletin board, and they have a quote of the day. You're the quote of the day here in this office. No one cares when you're right. Mike Danger.
It's true. They only want to tell you when you're wrong. Nobody cares when you're right. I don't want people to say, "Hey, man, you've been saying it all along." Like, I don't care. I'm not keeping score. If I'm right, fine. I'm right, but nobody is going to care, and I don't need that validation. It's like it just felt as the season was starting, and as we kind of evaluated what this team was from a roster standpoint, what we saw at training camp, and what we knew about Miami last season, and the trajectory that they were on, everything felt like the Bills were going to be a little bit worse than they were last year, and the Dolphins are going to be a little bit better than they were last year. And if that's the case, then we're on a collision course for Week 18.
But with the extent, it was always a big story in this league when a 10-team win, a 10-win team would not make the postseason. But then you figure, oh, those days are over with the expanded playoffs.
Nope.
Nope.
And the games that you can look back on and be like, oh, well, that didn't matter. Well, that didn't matter. No, the conference losses are a bitch. I mean, like the losses to Cincinnati, the losses to Jacksonville, the conference losses, if that's the thing, like, you can't take a single game for granted. Denver, the Denver game. The Denver game is the one that was the one that put me over the edge.
Denver put you over the edge, but the game in Foxborough where you take the lead and you're like, terrible. Okay. Oh, but then you're going to let Mac Jones drive the ball on
just
your defense?
Terrible. I mean, I want New England almost feels like you should assess more blame to Josh Allen, but it was Sean McDermott's defense that made Mac Jones look like Tom Brady for a series or two there as well. So, yeah, those conference losses being the reason if they don't make it, like, how do you make? You can't make any excuse. It's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. The hope here, of course, go into Miami, beat up on a team that Josh Allen has primarily owned through his career. But again, it's going to be compelling because based on what you've seen out of the Bills the last 2 weeks, do you have confidence that they can go in there and play the way they looked against Dallas? That was just a few weeks ago, but it feels like forever ago the way they've played the last two games. I have a lot of doubts.
The Bills are the one team that can beat anybody, and they can lose anybody in this league. They really are.
For sure. We're going to get to our guest list here of who we got stopping by the sports bar, including, man, you want to talk about time while we were off, something that happened that it's funny. When things were bad with the Sabres, when the Sabres gave up 9 goals to Columbus a few weeks ago.
9 times.
But, I was, and everybody was, the chants for Fire Donnie were getting louder and louder. And then, of course, the Sabres respond by dropping 9 on the Maple Leafs. And we did this for Coach. And, we were talking about, well, listen, be careful what you wish. Selfishly, I don't want them to move on from Don Granato, because my fear is if they move on from Don Granato, they're going to promote the guy who's worked with these guys as much as anybody, and that's Seth Appert. I don't want to see Seth Appert leave Rochester. I know someday he's going to, but selfishly, I want him here as long as we can have him.
Well,
what happened?
Yeah, funny thing happened. Don Granato, like many of us, under the weather to the point where he had to stay away. So I get the alert. I'm driving on my way to Syracuse watching Orange. Like, wait a second, Seth's behind the bench tonight? They're promoting Seth? They didn't give one of the assistants in Buffalo. Danger, that to me feels like a little trial run for Seth Appert.
Sure. You can't help but speculate what all is behind them. I mean, ultimately, if a guy is sick and you can't have him around the team, you can imagine what might be going on there. Nobody's saying it anymore, but everybody kind of knows, maybe he's got COVID. Keep him away from the team. Let's not get this to spread throughout the team. And maybe some of the guys on the team have been playing through symptoms. But that aside, you can't help but at least use it as a data point. At minimum, it's a data point. At minimum, you could say, how did the team react with him behind the bench? What was the vibe like in the atmosphere in the locker room between periods, before the game, after the game? How have practices been? And, in true Seth Appert-led team fashion, you couldn't get the regulation win against the Blue Jackets, but you do get the W when it's all said and done. And then we'll talk to him later this afternoon. What happened in Ottawa? I mean, they got shelled. Seth Appert will be joining us, not at his regular time on Tuesday. Usually joins us at 4:25 on Tuesday. We'll get him on for last call before we close up shop at 6 here in the Sports Bar.
We'll talk to Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard. Of course, he was at the Bills-Patriots game, and he will be heading to Miami, also the Shout podcast, and give some insight here because with Matt coming up at 3:25, I think Diggs is going to be a story here for different reasons this week, Danger. One being, all right, look at the production. What has happened? You could say, well, that's Joe Brady kind of, making sure the ball is evenly distributed. And I'll accept a portion of that. But to me, something really strange happened in that Bills-Patriot game that nobody's really talking about. And this is this. It was the opening sequence, the opening series of the second half. He wasn't on the field. He wasn't. You're going with Trent Sherfield over Steph Diggs. Why is that? He was healthy as far as we know. What I observed, Danger, then the second series, 10 players out there. Diggs is the last one to come out, and there's kind of fist bumps and handshakes and everything. It was almost like his offensive teammates were welcoming him back, and I'm wondering if there's a little more to the story.
I'm sure there is. There has to be. It makes no sense as to why you would have your best player off the field for a series, taking a series off. And look, we will probably never really know. Maybe we will someday know what happened. We tied down on the case. Maybe we'll get one of his 25 sources to tell us what really happened, before that game or during halftime of that game that led to him not being out there for the first series of the second half when you're fighting for your playoff life and he gives you the best chance to win. That's the thing that drives me nuts. It's this arrogance of the head coach. We talk about the assumption of rational coaching all the time, right? That's the first time I heard Sigmund Bloom from Football Guys say that and explain the assumption of rational coaching in terms of how we view fantasy football and how we look to, the assumption of rational coaching says that if you draft Bijan Robinson,
you're going to play
Bijan Robinson, but Arthur Smith is not a rational coach, and so Bijan Robinson doesn't get the kind of usage you would expect a rational coach, how a rational coach would use him. And you see it with certainly with Sean Payton. Now, in the case of Sean Payton and Russell Wilson, you've got a really ugly situation there, and you start Jarrett Stidham, and you get a win over a team that's being led by an interim head coach and Easton Stick. So I don't know if you get a brownie or cookie, a cookie or brownie points for making that decision. It's an arrogant decision. It's a my way or the highway. I'm the alpha. I'm the tough guy. There's no. It's too authoritative, I think, in the world that we live in now. You do have to manage these egos, but you have to have relationships with these guys. And, look, we don't believe that there's, based on what we saw this offseason, there can't be a great relationship between Sean McDermott, other than a working relationship between Sean McDermott and Stephon Diggs. And maybe that's the way McDermott wants it. Fine. Maybe you have a player, though, who wants more than that. And if it's your best player, I would say you might want not treat him differently, but you might want to give into that a little bit instead of go the opposite way and sit him down. Don't know if that's what happened. We don't know.
We don't know anything, but that question needs to be asked. Why wasn't he out there if he's healthy and ready to go?
Now, there's a follow-up to that occurred yesterday. Tim Graham of The Athletic, and how it works on Bill's Zoom calls, media Zoom calls. They go around the horn, basically. And when it's your turn, they unmute you. You ask your question, and they let you know, like, you're going to have this amount of time for a question, follow-up, whatever. He asked the question about Diggs. McDermott gave his answer about Diggs, and then it got kind of quiet on the call. I don't know if you saw the video. I think the video is out there. Like, Tim might have even posted it himself. He wanted to ask a follow-up question on Diggs, but he was muted. Bill's PR muted him, and then the call ended on his question about Diggs. And I don't think it was a surprise. Sean McDermott wasn't surprised to answer that question. He answered it the way you would expect him to answer it, the way he answers every question. He didn't give you anything. He's got a big part of our team. We certainly want to get him out there. Sometimes Josh, through his progressions, doesn't, he sees him first, but he doesn't get the ball to him, whatever the case may be. But what Tim's follow-up was going to be, like, I wanted to know what that was. Maybe it's not a big deal, and maybe we're making more out of it than needs to be made. But your observation and the observation of all the fans that were there to notice that it was Sherfield out there to start the second half, not Diggs. What's up with that?
In a game that is still very tight at that point? What are we doing?
What's going on?
What are we doing?
Right. Well, maybe Matt Perino has some insight that he can share with us. Matt Perino covers a team for the Syracuse Post-Standard, and as he does every Tuesday in the Sports Bar, he's going to join us next to talk some Buffalo Bills here on the Fan, Rochester.
Sports Update.
Buffalo Bills are listed as 3-point favorites for their game in Miami on Sunday. A win over the Dolphins, and the Bills will win the AFC East and be the 2 seed. A loss coupled with wins by the Steelers and Jaguars, and the Bills would be out. Head coach Sean McDermott giving his thoughts on the opponent.
It's going to be a big challenge. They're well coached. They have dynamic offensive players, dynamic defensive players, and special teams. And they do a great job with the explosive plays on offense and then creating big-time negative plays on defense. And like I said, this is going to be a big challenge for us.
Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, joining us next year in the Sports Bar. Don Granato returning to practice today for the Buffalo Sabres. Seth Appert, who filled in over the weekend, he's back with the Amerks. We'll talk to Seth coming up in the 5 o'clock hour today. Syracuse basketball tonight, playing at Duke. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Neat or on the rocks? It's the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can take a certain amount, but then there's a certain amount you can't, right? So it's probably split down the middle, really. I mean, we have some new players that didn't play in that first game, and so I just think it's you learn a little bit from it, and then this game will take on its own identity and make.
There's Bills head coach Sean McDermott. Yeah, these are two different teams from the first meeting earlier this season. The Bills traveling down to Miami for the AFC East. Talk some Buffalo Bills football, covering the team for the Syracuse Post-Standard. Host of the Shout podcast, Matt Perino, stopping by on a Tuesday, as he does throughout the course of the Bills season. Matt, hope you had a great holiday season, and now you got a trip to South Beach in your immediate future. We got a lot to get to after that win on Sunday, and everything that's gone on since then. And I know you were kind of like the spearhead of this line of questioning yesterday during the Zoom call with Sean McDermott. What was the excuse for Steph Diggs and kind of like not necessarily the lack of production, more so the lack of usage? Him not being out there to start the second half is questionable, isn't it?
Yeah, it was weird. And then Joe Brady in his press conference said that he basically alluded to there never being a third down where Stephon Diggs wasn't on the field, but I haven't actually gone back. I'm hoping to get some time to do it later, but I do think that there was a third down, at least one, where he wasn't on the field. But either way, I mean, you look at the snap percentage that is just plummeted over the last 3 games, and it feels like something's going on here, whether it's fundamentally with what they're doing or something's going on with the Stephon Diggs. And, Sean McDermott basically left both of those doors open by saying that, sometimes it's a personnel thing. Sometimes it's trying to get him some rest in certain times, and sometimes they even go into the game with that kind of mentality. Listen, I mean, I get it to a degree. Like, I think Stephon Diggs is, he's on the wrong side of 30. You do want him to be as fresh as possible for the playoffs, and if that means getting him a couple extra rests during a game week, I get it. But these have been close games that you got to have at games. And his snap count, I mean, he was outsnapped last game by Khalil Shakir. And so, I don't know, it seems like they're saying all the right things and that, they want to get him more involved in the offense, all while not force-feeding him, because I think that is also not a great plan of attack, and we've seen how that's gone in years past. But it's a really bad time for just this cloud of doubt that's kind of like hanging over the offense going into a must-win game this week and then into the playoffs.
Not surprising to me, though, was, hey, they actually benched Von Miller here. Do you see a pathway for Miller to be active for the rest of the season here, Matt?
I mean, I do. I don't think he should be. I think you've seen everything that you need to see through 9 games. And what was on the field against the Chargers was, a complete fall back to what we saw in the early games. Like, I think of Jacksonville, the Giants game, the first Patriots game. Like, he had a moment there in the fourth quarter against the Chiefs where there was 2 impact plays that he made down the stretch, which, whether or not you think he should be on the field is a completely other conversation. And, he spoke for the first time last week, and I don't think anybody was super comfortable with, how he kind of brushed off some of, the things that were in that police report. And both the team and Von Miller have said now that, there's things that you read in articles and, that's not true, but it's like, it's not stuff that was in articles. It was stuff that was in a police report, and it was a 911 phone call from Von's pregnant girlfriend, which he confirmed that she was pregnant. So, I don't know. From my perspective, he's not playing well enough to be on the field because it's potentially taking away snaps from a guy like A.J. Epinesa, who you need on the field. And then there's a whole other part of it. And I get it, like, the team at this point, I would imagine, has done enough due diligence to where if they're putting him out there, they must feel comfortable with it. They probably have more information than we do. But from a football perspective, I don't see an argument other than the fact that he's a captain and kind of just pushing him onto the field because of that.
Matt, I want to go back to the offense because the last 2 weeks don't look like they did. The offense doesn't look like it did when you were running the ball through Dallas. And the one constant through this, whether you're talking about Brian Daboll or Ken Dorsey or Joe Brady, it's still Sean McDermott's team. We know that head coaches in the NFL are control freaks. What is it? Is it a head coach that's meddling where he maybe doesn't need to be meddling? Is it we don't want to show too much when we're trying to win these games and the way that we win these games? I mean, what do you attribute the kind of like just the misstep? They're off a beat here the last 2 weeks.
So I think it starts with, in the passing game, Josh Allen has just not been Josh Allen the last two games. I think that's fair to say. And for him to come off the field and talk about how bad he played and how poorly he threw the ball, like there's something going on there. And like obviously the shoulder's been something that's been an issue all season. He's remained on the injury report throughout the season. And now you add in this little stinger at the end of the game, and you wonder how much that's going to affect his week of practice this week. The first time we get a chance to see that is tomorrow, so we'll see where he's at. Everybody said he's good, so you got to take them at their word. But go back to that Cowboys game, and what was the team? Who was the team they were running against? The Cowboys, who are one of the worst run defenses in the NFL, and what they've played. The Chargers game was a little bit of a weird outlier, I think. It was a short week, traveling east to west coast against a really bad opponent that just changed head coaches. I think it was just a funky game. But the Patriots have one of the best run defenses in the league. So I think that they were trying to get the run game going, and over time they just, kind of were more comfortable settling for those 3 to 4 yards per carry. But that's a dangerous game to play, too. I thought, I haven't gone back and looked at the exact play action numbers in that game, but I think it was interesting that on the first play, Brady ran play action, and Josh Allen got sacked, and it looked very reminiscent of the play on the first play the previous week against the Broncos, and so I wonder if it was a situation where they didn't want to lean into that, and that's something that I think you have to do, especially against teams that defend the run well, is you got to change it up. You got to give them different looks. And I don't know if the Bills ever kind of got comfortable offensively, and I think even Allen alluded to that after the game. So there's a lot going on right there. And I still think as good as it's looked at times under Brady, there's still an element to, like, he's playing catch-up. He has to be, right? Like, I mean, there's only, when you get tasked with taking over the whole operation, when you've had one singular job, like in the middle of the season, that's a challenge. So I think they're still dealing with some elements of that.
Yeah, Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, our guest here. Doesn't help, Matt, when right out of the gate, you're not even 15 seconds into this game, and you're down 7-0. You still can return a kickoff, apparently, in this league for a touchdown, as the Patriots did. Gosh, if you think of like the worst moments here of the season, well, go back to week 1, a punt return, or the 12 men on the field there. The question here is about special teams, Matt. Should we expect some overhaul, whether that's the coach or the personnel or something? Like, I don't need my special teams to win games. I just need them not to lose.
We've already identified our off-season fall guy for this team.
Yeah, I think if it was my decision, Matthew Smiley would no longer be the special teams coordinator. I think you could have made an argument for that after the Denver game, and they decided to let go of Ken Dorsey, and obviously that's worked. They've only lost one game since. I also wonder if they need to pivot away from this idea that they need these core special teams players, because You're paying Tyler Mitakevich. There's a couple of guys on that unit over the years that have been they've leaned on as captains and guys that they've invested in a little bit more. I don't think you need to do that. I think you need to find, they tend to develop special teamers pretty well anyway. Like think of Tyrell Dotson, Cam Lewis, undrafted guys that, come in and find a way to make plays and play a role. Balin Spector, a late round draft pick, guys like that. Although I think Balin Spector's been one of the guys that I think hasn't had a great run of special teams play this season. So they're going to have to make some decisions, especially at the coordinator spot, because it was such a easy transition from Farwell to Smiley because Smiley had been on the staff for so long. But this is a significant dip back. I mean, they're bottom third in the league in DVOA special teams, which if you put all the three units together, that's the one unit that's not holding its weight, and it's a unit that under Farwell before Smiley was consistently top 5 in the NFL.
Matt, let's take a closer look at Miami, where they are heading into this game after just getting blown out by the number 1 seed, by the Ravens. Look, based on how the Bills have played the last 2 weeks, I'm not overly confident about their ability to go down to Miami and win Week 18, but we have seen the Bills have their way with the Dolphins in one way, shape, or form. They get wins, and Josh Allen has proven to be this has proven to be a very positive matchup for Josh Allen. How do you see things here early in the week lining up for the Bills here as they travel to South Beach?
What's funny is, I feel like the last 2 weeks give you more confidence, or should give you more confidence, because even though they didn't play well for a lot of those 2 games, they still found ways to win, and that's a complete different story than we watched earlier in this season, as they were playing down to competition, but then blowing games late against the Patriots and the Broncos. So I think they're in a spot now going on the road against the Miami Dolphins team that they've just absolutely owned over the years since Josh Allen has arrived, and they're banged up on defense. And the one area where the Bills need to get right after the last couple of games is their passing game, and that's a defense right now that's just not – it doesn't have enough horses to defend. And the thing about them that's tough is, you can run against them, especially with who they're missing. And so I think James Cook is a guy in this game. Look, go back and watch that Ravens game. Justice Hill, Gus Edwards, they just feasted in the run and pass game. This is the James Cook game if you've ever seen it. I think Stephon Diggs can get going. I know it's going to probably be shadow coverage by Jalen Ramsey, but whoever's on Eli Apple, who's going to probably play for Xavier Howard, that should be somebody that's also having some success in this game. But I don't think they have an answer for James Cook. And, you saw what it could look like at its peak with over 200 yards all-purpose a couple weeks ago against the Cowboys. It's going to look a little bit different this week because I think they're going to use him maybe more in the passing game. But, yeah, I would get the ball in his hands as much as possible. I'd leave Latavius Murray on the bench. I might even consider making him a game day inactive and elevating Leonard Fournette off the practice squad and handing over the number 2 job solely to Ty Johnson and letting, Fournette come in on a couple gotta-have-it passing downs where you want his pass blocking. But other than that, I think Cook and Ty Johnson have done enough to be that 1-2 tandem at this point. And it feels like Sean McDermott, Joe Brady are kind of, leaning in that direction after Ty Johnson came back from the injury and had a really good fourth quarter the other night.
So, Matt, what would help Buffalo, and I guess fans, going into that game knowing, okay, you're in, you're just doing this to improve your seating, you maybe get a home game. What's the likelihood that either the Steelers or the Jaguars lose on Sunday or Saturday?
I think either of them could lose. You got a fired up Mike Vrabel at the podium today, talking about not wanting to end the season on a bad note. I know Will Levis is going to be something that you watch all week, but maybe Ryan Tannehill somehow comes up with an Andy Dalton-like performance for the Bills and somehow finds a way to knock off the Jags, and you can kind of take a deep breath going into Sunday Night Football, play a little bit freer, but while still needing to win that game because you want that 2 seed. So that's the piece of it that doesn't matter to me, what happens with the first 2 games, because I think the Bills are going on down there on a mission. That is to go from 6-6 with your playoff odds at something like 19% at around that point, to now 5 weeks later, 6 weeks later, having a chance to play for 2 home playoff games on the road against a team that's absolutely beaten up and is flailing themselves. I mean, it's been a typical December for the Miami Dolphins. They're 2-2, exactly what they've kind of been the last couple of years. When things get hard, when the tape is out and the defense gets tougher, they tend to kind of regress. And so now the Bills are going into this on an absolute heater. And I know it hasn't looked pretty the last 2 games, but I think inside that building, they build a lot of confidence, take a lot of confidence from the fact that they were able to win those games despite not playing very well.
So, Matt, I know that we've been digesting a steady drumbeat for the last few weeks of, hey, if there's a team you don't want to play in the postseason, it's the Buffalo Bills. We've been hearing it, maybe less so the last couple of weeks, but there are, a lot of people that believe that the Bills right now are deserving of that 2 seed, that they are the second best team in the AFC and maybe the third best team in the NFL. But I wanted to get your take on what you've seen out of the Ravens, because right now that's the team that I would not want to face, just based, even though they're beat up, even though that they've had some struggles in the postseason. Man, that looks like a physical team that can have their way in the postseason.
I love the matchup of Sean McDermott against Lamar for the Bills, but to your point, they are very physical on both lines. I think their defensive line has been so good this year, and they pivoted to, a couple years ago, a new defensive scheme, and you're starting to see the fruits of that labor. They've been one of the best defenses in football. And so, to your point, I think the Baltimore Ravens are the best team in the NFL right now. And so, the Bills, of course, can have a claim to that at some point. And if we're talking about just how it looks on paper and, having Josh Allen and comparing Josh Allen and Lamar, we can have all those conversations. But at the end of the day, the resume for the Ravens this year is, just unbelievable. So the team to me that now fits into what you were just talking about with the way that people were talking about the Bills the last month is the Browns. Because I think the Browns are the team nobody wants to play. Like, Flacco's just playing with house money. He's been unflappable. And their defense is the best defense, I think, in the NFL. Myles Garrett is, to me, the most unblockable pass rusher, but also the most impossible player to deal with, because you could spend your whole week game planning for him and he could still wreck your game. So the Browns are, to me, the one good thing about the Bills potentially winning the 2 seed is that they would most likely not have to face the Browns in the second round. You'd probably end up, if you faced them at all, I'd make an argument that I think the Browns are a worse matchup for the Bills than the Ravens, as crazy as that might sound. But you might not have to play them until the AFC title game if that were to be the case, and then it would be a home game. I mean, there's so many different scenarios that could play out in a super weird AFC year here as it is. And, oh, by the way, I know everybody's writing off the Kansas City Chiefs, but I am just not there. Yeah. It would not be crazy to me if they figure out a way to refine their identity down or into the playoffs for that offense.
But wouldn't it be fun to see them come to Buffalo? With fans in the stands for the first time since 2014, which in this Mahomes-Allen era hasn't happened yet. Again, with fans in the stands. Last one for me, Matt, and it's a player that I don't think we talk enough about. How did the Bills get Rasul Douglas there for a pick swap? I mean, I guess maybe on the one hand, you don't normally get corners playing their best ball when they're approaching age 30, but the importance of that trade, I'm just wondering where the Bills might be here if they didn't pick up Douglas there at the deadline.
I mean, that's one of those kind of moves that I think that you'll look back on Brandon Beane's tenure as one of the pivotal moves. Now, of course, they could not make the playoffs, and this year could be a waste. But if they go on a real run here, you look back at a move like that and say, wow, for a guy that's at times over the last 12 months taken quite a bit of heat for some of the alleged misses in the draft and some bad free agent decisions, a lot of what he did last season into this season has come up really, really nicely for the Bills. And you're also now seeing some guys that he's drafted develop. I mean, where would the Bills defense be without Terrell Bernard? I mean, you look at that graphic that the Bills put out a couple days ago about his season. What was it? 6+ sacks, 3+ picks, and 3+ fumble recoveries. And that's That's more in one season than Tremaine Edmonds had in his entire Bills career.
Yeah.
And that's a guy that, like, we spent the entire summer talking about what in the world are the Bills doing. They've not addressed his position at all. They're banking on Terrell Bernard, and all he's done is made them look like geniuses. And, I think there's a lot of that. I think the Connor McGovern move, I've talked a lot about this on the podcast the last couple of days. It's like you can't – he didn't have a great game last week, so maybe this isn't the best time to say it, but look at his season compared to the top free agent at guard, Ben Powers in Denver. Powers given up 3 sacks. I think he's given up 26.5 pressures. And McGovern's given up 1 sack and 15 pressures. And the Bills are paying him like $6 million less per season. He was the 4th-ranked guard in AAV on the free agent market. That is bang for your buck that I don't think is truly appreciated, especially considering what they had at the position last year in Saffold when he gave up 45 pressures, which I think led the NFL.
Yeah, and we don't spend enough time talking about the importance of that offensive line, the continuity that's come with them being healthy through the entirety of the season. You mentioned Joe Flacco earlier. That, to me, is evidence that a good quarterback behind a really, really good offensive line can still flourish. I mean, let's face it, Flacco's not putting up those numbers behind what the Jets were throwing out there last year.
No, without a doubt. And actually, if you look ahead and you start to look at the offseason, I know, and I'm in this bucket. Like, I think the Bills should be aggressive getting their next wide receiver 1. And if it's not wide receiver 1 right away because you got another year of Diggs, then it's wide receiver 1 in waiting. And there's a bunch in this first round. And I think that might mean you take some draft capital and you get up in the first round. You don't think Kansas City is going to be, making calls to try to get up to get one of these wide receivers after watching their group this year? I don't think you can let another Trent McDuffie situation happen where you get leapfrogged by another team that's wide receiver hungry, different position, obviously. But you also have to start thinking about offensive line long term, especially tackle long term. Deion Dawkins isn't getting any younger. Spencer Brown's been really good, but I don't think you can bank on a guy after one season, after a couple of okay seasons, at times even bad seasons, to be an answer there. So you're going to have some decisions to be made, and I really think the draft, with the way this defense has played and how they found pieces, how they've melded it all together. I know a lot of people are talking about safety high up in the draft. Maybe not a lot of people, but some people. I don't know if I'd go in that direction because the Bills historically under Sean and Brandon have done a good job at finding those undrafted, low-round draft picks and having them be depth. But also, go back to Hyde and Poyer. They were both guys that, I think Poyer was a UDFA and Hyde was a late-round draft pick. You don't need to spend great capital to develop really good safeties. And I think that with the emphasis they put on their defensive line anyway, and the fact that they're continuing to develop along that, you have Ed Oliver in your place, you have Greg Rousseau in place. We'll see what happens with the rest of them. I think you can go out and get somebody there. But tackle and wide receiver this offseason are at the top of my priority list.
We are talking Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard. Danger, I didn't tell you this story earlier, but Ryan Talbot was at the game, and I'm afraid I came off as big leaguing him because he came up to me during the tunnel.
Not you. No, you never do that.
He's like, Ryan comes up to me and says, "Hey, I came up to you earlier and was ready to say hello, but you were kind of in the zone." I'm like, I didn't even realize Matt that he was there.
Quick question: does Gene give off "Leave Me Alone" vibes on game day?
Oh, listen, this is the best segment of this hit so far because I got a lot of thoughts. So here's the thing. Sometimes you walk by Gino in the press box, and that is just it. He looks just dialed in. Either dialed in, or he's just daydreaming about them putting out the lunch spread because we're like about a half hour away from all the food coming out.
Yeah.
It's one or the other. I can't ever tell which one, but he's got that look.
Could be both. Maybe. Matt, what are you on Ryan working? When's the next Shoutcast drop here?
All right, so we got 4 episodes this week. I'm dropping one here. Wow. As soon as I get done here, we're going to preview the games that could dictate the scenario for Sunday night. So I caught up with Mike Golick Jr. today. Ryan and I will talk a little bit about it. We'll have our Staples show tomorrow. I believe I'll have Marcel Louis-Jacques on Thursday, nice. And then Friday will be our preview episode.
Matt, great work as always. Let's catch up again next week, and hopefully we're talking about the Bills advancing in the postseason.
Sounds good, boys. Take care.
There's Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, joining us here in the sports bar with the latest from Orchard Park.
Yeah, as he sounds optimistic. He thinks that, okay, these last 2 games, maybe not, but the Bills can go down to Miami and take care of their business. I thought it was also interesting, too, Danger, identifying the Browns being the one team.
It's true.
Yeah,
it's true. That's strong. That's fair. It's funny, with Flacco back there doing what he's doing, it is an unbelievable story. But more than anything, it just puts an emphasis on just how important that offensive line is, right? Like so many bad teams. We just don't talk about offensive line play when we're talking generally about football. And it's everything. It's so important. The Lamar wouldn't be who Lamar is without that offensive line. Josh Allen wouldn't be who he is without that offensive line. And furthermore, really good quarterbacks who struggle because they don't have that offensive line in front of them. It's so important, and Joe Flacco is just evidence. Imagine what the Jets look like next year if it's Aaron Rodgers behind that offensive line. He's going to look terrible behind that offensive line.
Or Joe Flacco, where it was previously, it didn't look like anything. And I think this is an important point to bring up on this day, January 2nd, because if you're a Bills fan, you probably remember where you were and everything that happened 1 year ago today. And is it sacrilege for me to say that the comeback player of the year should be Joe Flacco?
Oh, I don't think that's sacrilege. And I think DeMar Hamlin, whereas you went into the season saying, oh, it's going to be DeMar Hamlin. But he's been so out of the spotlight. I mean, he's been inactive, every week except for, 3, 4?
He hasn't contributed.
Right.
It's the best comeback of all time, but as far as helping your team.
Correct. There are far more worthy candidates. You could give it to Baker Mayfield, right? I mean, Baker Mayfield's a pretty good story if they find themselves in the postseason. Mm-hmm. Joe Flacco is certainly a great story as well. But man, that offensive line and Cleveland's legit. Defense is really, really good. I'm with Perino on that one. And I might not be as optimistic about Sunday night as he is, but some really great points there from Matt Perino covering the Bills for the Syracuse Post-Standard. You can join us on the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line. 866-4FAN is our phone number. 866-4326. Award-winning barbecue from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub, the new location at 135 West Commercial Street in East Rochester. GoodSmokeBBQ.com. We'll get to some takes on tap next with I'll Drink to That.
Yeah, I've got some thoughts here on what we experienced from the NFL in terms of scheduling on Christmas. Oh, we're not going to do that next year. It's on a Wednesday. Okay, I'll present to you my plan on this. Also, Syracuse basketball take here. While they're more entertaining, it doesnn't feel like the Boeheim era carried over here. I like what I saw. They are fatally flawed. Okay, there's nothing's going to fix this team. This team is doomed in the end. They're going to be fun to watch, but they're doomed, and I'll explain.
I had so much fun as the year wrapped up compiling lists of Francesas. Now, if you're new to the show, you hear us use Francesa as a verb. What's a Francesa? A Francesa is something that you just over. You don't care about it, or you're blissfully ignorant or oblivious to. And it stems from the GOAT, from Mike Francesa when he was back on WFAN, finding out that Spider-Man creator Stan Lee passed away.
Eddie in Hoboken. What's up, Eddie?
Hey, what's up, Mike?
What's happening?
Hey, Mike, Stan Lee died today. Did you ever meet the guy? What do you think of him?
Stan Lee?
Yeah, Stan Lee.
I don't know who he is.
Lee?
Don't know who he is, no.
Jesus.
Who is he? Who is he? Who is Stan Lee?
He was one of the creators of Marvel Comics.
Oh, who cares? I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not a comic book guy. Is that who he is, Stan Lee? The guy
who created Spider-Man. That was his big
created Spider-Man? Sorry. I never was a comic book reader as a kid. I apologize. Never.
So he's apologizing for not reading comic books, not for like, hey, your family might be listening. Oh, he died. Oh, who cares?
Right.
He died.
Yeah,
oh.
And Eddie from Hoboken deserves a lot of credit for that bit of audio as well. His reaction, Jesus, just priceless.
Oh, who cares?
So with that in mind, I have compiled a list of my weekend Francesas here. It's a Tuesday, but it feels like a Monday.
Well, it's a long weekend. That was what? 10 or 12 day
well,
weekend?
It's funny you brought that up because I also have a take on the week between Christmas and New Year's that I'll share next as well. We've got Amerks head coach Seth Appert joining us at 5:45 during last call, and we do have time for your calls as well at 866-4FAN. More next in the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia, the Fan, Rochester.
Odyssey has sports for every.
Streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Buffalo Bills are listed as 3-point favorites for their game in Miami. A win over the Dolphins in Buffalo would win the AFC East as a 2 seed. And conversely, a loss coupled with wins by the Steelers and Jaguars, and the Bills would miss out on the postseason. Head coach Sean McDermott on his defense.
I think it's more than anything. I think it's the rushing coverage working together and the communication that we're developing with the back seven, right? Making sure everyone's on the same page, everyone understands the vision for the game plan and the purpose and the theme that week. And so I credit those guys in the back end, but also the front with their ability to rush the passer.
Our coverage on The Fan will begin at 4 o'clock on Sunday. The New York Jets have granted the release of running back Dalvin Cook. Cook wants to join a team heading to the playoffs. Don Granado returning to practice today for the Sabres. Syracuse basketball tonight, playing at Duke. Gene Battaglia on the sports leader, The Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Bills 27, Patriots 21.
But how fun is this? Buffalo at Miami for the division.
For the AFC East Division crown in South Florida, and it's going to be for the number 2 seed in the AFC.
Sunday night football. I'm going to Miami.
Josh has done great against Miami. McDermott seems to have the way to neutralize Tyreek Hill. What a great comeback that would be, and a great story if we can go into Miami and win it.
Touchdown Miami!
Their schematics are almost revolutionary.
Mike Danger.
You're in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia, back from our long holiday break, and also Happy New Year to you and yours. The calendar flips to 2024.
Gene Battaglia.
This is it for Buffalo. There are no excuses now. You have this division within your sights. This should be the AFC East now for the Buffalo Bills, hands down.
So it'll be Washington and Michigan for the national championship.
The Kraken a 3-0 win over Vegas at the Winter Classic.
Here we are.
Let's go! 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Welcome back in to the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia. I know it's been beaten to death over the last 2 weeks during college football bowl season. Bowl season is not bowl season anymore. It's exhibition season. It's just not. Until you got to last night's games, none of those games felt like there was any sort of weight whatsoever to them.
No, it's background noise. It's comfort food. Oh, there's the Sun Bowl, and like Notre Dame's playing, and I have it on in the background while you're doing whatever during Christmas week.
Right, I mean, you don't really know any of the players. No. You're not really interested in the outcome of the game.
You don't know what there's a game that's going to be on. You don't know when or where, and you really don't care.
All that said, if anything was proven, the committee got it right. You've got the two best teams unquestionably playing against each other coming up on Monday night. That's awesome. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, and what may kind of prove, because I always came down on this is going to demean the regular season by going to 12 teams, but those 12 teams, will you have then less opt-outs? Will you have more teams just kind of sticking together?
I think, in a kind of backwards way, it's almost as if the college football backed into this one of the solutions to their own problems. And there's a lot of problems with college football right now. A lot of problems. And my biggest fear, and I think it's an inevitability actually, is that at some point Congress is going to step in and they're going to regulate everything, and everything about college football will change. Now, if they listen to smart people, then maybe they don't screw it up too badly. If they separate football and college athletics from everything else, and they give all of the players a slice of the pie, and they figure out ways to make the scheduling work with the new conference realignment. But the thing that they've backed into that is actually going to help them next year at this time is that expanded playoff. More games that mean something, that mean anything. I mean, games that I mean, it's kind of, I was like shocked. I'm like, oh God, Bo Nix is playing for Oregon. What's he doing out there? He doesn't have anything left to prove. Why is he? You just saw so many kids opt out, the transfer portal, kids getting ready for the draft. All of that is going to be evergreen. We're going to be talking about that, but I think the chances of that happening, you're right, Gene, become less likely when there's something to play for in an expanded college football playoff.
I looked at the schedule next year. Do you realize the championship game next year is going to be on January 22nd? It's just going to push everything out.
Right.
I mean, you're going to have these opening round games, and I don't know. Am I allowed to change a take? I mean, maybe I'm curious to see how it's going to look, Danger. I don't like the fact that Michigan, Ohio State always kind of de facto playoff game on Thanksgiving weekend is going to be, okay, both these teams are in. It's going to be a little less, but
you have the chance of seeing that happen again in an expanded playoff, and that would be a lot of fun. And for college football to be able to compete with the NFL in terms of getting those eyeballs on your product, generating more TV revenue down the road. Yeah, expand it into January and go head-to-head with the meatiest part of the NFL schedule, their postseason, and let's see what happens. I don't know when they're playing those games. Are you going to go head-to-head with the NFL?
No, you would go Monday nights. Like that's kind of how the first few, whenever you're doing the quarterfinals there, you could put them during Christmas week, one a night maybe. It'd
sure.
be fantastic. Every night we'd be having a game we'd be dialing into. And then when you get to that part with, what would be the 8th, the 15th, the 22nd, if the NFL wants to go head-to-head, go ahead.
Oh, I know that this kind of leads into one of your takes
Well,
here.
it's true. Look, I always dislike the phrase "danger moving the goalposts."
No, have a stand. Take a stand. Have a take, you coward.
No,
don't move the goalpost.
No, you should be allowed now and again to change your opinion.
Oh,
otherwise,
boy.
how do you evolve?
Soft.
No.
Evolve?
Yeah, you're
Who
not.
wants to evolve?
What's the Billy
Let me
Joel?
tell you something, Gino. I'm almost 50 years old now. And if I haven't grown up by age 50, I don't ever have to grow up. I don't need to evolve.
You are the Billy Joel Angry Young Man song, all right? That's kind of the way I look at it. And one thing, I'm going to admit one thing that I kind of changed on, all right? And look, I'm the guy who always said Christmas Day. No, I love sports, but there's nothing sacred. And you got to know where I come from. I went to Aquinas. I still believe Christmas is the one day to be with your family. Now, that being said, the NFL had a little energy on Christmas Day, did it not?
Yeah.
I'm in the kitchen doing dishes, and I hear the roar in the next room. I got to go running over. What happened? Dad, the Raiders scored again. Mahomes a pick six, and we're all laughing. I like the NFL on Christmas. Yep. I didn't revolve my day around it. I didn't even watch Baltimore, San Francisco, okay? But the NFL next year says, well, Christmas is on a Wednesday. There's not going to be any games. And lie.
You think they'll play games on a Wednesday?
Well, here's how you would do it, right? You put 3 to 4 games on the previous Saturday, which that's kind of the MO of the NFL. They'll take over Saturday.
Triple header, sure.
Yeah, and so then you just kind of mix those teams up. Okay, so you're going to get some common opponents because let's think about this. What's the distance between Sunday and Thursday? It's the same as Saturday to Wednesday, where the NFL says, no, we're not going to do this on Christmas Day. There is money to be made. Did anybody talk about the NBA? Did you even watch any NBA? Okay, maybe you're a Celtic fan and you tuned in. But other than that, no. I predict Christmas Day is going to have football next year.
I was watching, or you mentioned comfort food, the bowl games. Like that's kind of what the NFL schedule on Christmas Day was. It was like comfort food. It was just nice having it on in the background. I wasn't really invested in the Ravens-Niners game. I wanted to see the outcome. I had it on. I was over at my brother-in-law's house, my sister-in-law's house, and there was a puzzle laid out. My nephew Vincent got a new puzzle for Christmas, 1,000-piece puzzle. I just sat down and I started working on the puzzle while the game was going on, and I'm paying attention to what's happening in the game, kind of, but I'm also dialed in. It was awesome.
It's a different vibe. It really is.
Completely.
Yeah.
And it would be different if it was the NBA exclusively instead of the NFL. I don't think the NFL, I'm with you on this one. I don't think the NFL should back down and just hand over Christmas Day to the NBA the way they used to all those years ago. No, go ahead. If you want to in the middle of the week, I'm sure you could figure out a way. Now, and the only thing that would prevent it would be, is there something in writing in the CBA that prevents you from playing games in the
middle of the week?
Maybe that's the case.
But what would be the ratings? Did the networks make money off of that? I would have to think they made money.
How much money do you think Peacock made just on having that one game? I bit the bullet. I did it. I didn't want to. I did it. I'm like, they got me. And now I'm like, I can't get rid of it yet because there's a postseason game coming up, and I'm going to want to watch that postseason game, even if the Bills aren't in that game. It's going to be one that I want. So now they got me. They got me, Gino.
keep forgetting that Peacock has a postseason game. Can you believe that would be the Bills?
It could be.
Yeah.
It could be. I'm glad you brought up Christmas because this hit me the week between Christmas and New Year's. It's a week that isn't real. It's not real. It's not a real week. Take December 26th through the 30th and just scrap it from the calendar. No one knows what day of the week it is. You don't know what day of the month it is. We're all bloated. We're all altered from the excess of the holidays. These days are fake. They don't actually exist. Nothing significant ever happens during the week between Christmas and New Year's. Anyone born these dates shouldn't be trusted. They're likely the product of witchcraft. The 26th through the 30th needs the leap year treatment. Go away for 4 years at a time.
I'm Mike Danger. I don't like fun. Those days are the best days. Those days are the best days of the year.
I'm not complaining about. I'm not talking about fun. I'm just saying they don't exist. They're like phantom days. Nobody knows.
It's unscripted.
My daughter is like, "What day is it?" She didn't know literally didn't know it's a Friday. Didn't we? She forgot. Time is different during this week. She thought she went to visit her Nona 2 days ago. She saw her yesterday. Like, just time is, it's just evaporating during that stretch of time. The only significant thing that happens is on cue, my tree gets to the curb.
Oh,
right
you did
there.
And on the 26th.
Mm-hmm. I might be slipping. It didn't get out there until just before 4 o'clock. I wanted to get it out there before 3.
All right. Now, who do you look down more on? Mike Danger for putting the tree out on the 26th? I'm going to confess something to you.
Is it still up?
Tree is still up.
Yeah. When's that coming down?
I think it's Saturday.
I'm giving you MLK. I'm saying MLK is when that's coming down.
Well, it might be a fire hazard because I don't have the environmentally friendly lights. I still have the old-fashioned, that really heat up there.
Yeah.
So, that might, I don't want to burn down my house there.
Yeah. No, I have and there's an expectation that I have to fulfill. And so I make sure that thing is on the curb now. Well, not me, my wife and I both make sure that tree is to the curb the day after Christmas.
You are right about the bloat and the eating and everything else. So, we're talking, Christmas night. I'm like, hey, I got an idea. What do you guys think of this? Let's go to the zoo tomorrow. Yeah, that's a great idea. We went to the zoo on the 26th while you were kicking your tree out.
Really?
There's nobody there. It's
the
time of year to go.
Open.
Zoo's open every day.
Huh.
The animals have to eat. They live, and they're not going on vacation. They're
Nobody
always there. No, very few.
You have the entire place to yourself, essentially.
Looking at the elephant eating things, just the lion laying out, the wolf going up and down. Yeah,
the polar bears coming out.
No, that was the bummer. I don't know.
Penguins?
The penguins. Yeah, the penguins were just kind of meandering around waiting for their food too.
Yeah, we got a little treasure here in our own backyard. The zoo is fantastic. I've never thought of going to the zoo during the wintertime, Gene. I'm glad you did that.
The zoo, yeah. Got a little exercise.
Bit the bullet?
What day was it? I don't know.
You have no idea because those days don't exist.
Orange fans, what day was this?
No idea. Nobody remembers. Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. It was they played Pitt over the break.
Was that a Friday? Was that a Saturday? What day of the week was that?
Do we Saturday.
Know? We sure about that?
Yeah, no, but I can tell you it happened. I was there. Here's my review of this year's Syracuse basketball team. Ready? They're actually fun. They hustle. They pass. There seems to be some basketball IQ. How refreshing is that? They have a little bit of size with McLeod, Bell, and Brown. Benny Williams is showing signs of life. Cordair Copeland is that fun glue guy that you want on your team. J.J. Starling can create in the backcourt. And they have the true alpha running the point in Judah Mintz. So what's the problem? They don't have a single guy who can tee it up from three. Syracuse ranks 229th in Division I in three-point percentage. To me, that is a fatal flaw. It's not like you're going to get somebody all of a sudden learning how to shoot. I don't think you can win without having that sort of element, but at least this version is going to be a little more fun.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be a little bit more fun just because there is a little bit of that a little bit less of that cantankerous air about this team, the anger of Jim Boeheim, the dark cloud of Jim Boeheim just being a constant D all the time. I like that, but I'm not buying in. Beat Duke tonight. Get me excited. Beat Duke. They're going to beat Duke tonight?
No,
they're not going to beat Duke tonight.
No, they beat the teams they're supposed to beat.
Yeah.
They beat a few they weren't.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, okay, LSU is kind of down. I get that. Oregon, that's a nice win. They're not beating Duke. I was going to ask you, do you want to go to Jim Boeheim Day in February there?
Who cares?
They're already promoting it.
Who's Jim Boeheim?
He coached that team for a long, long time.
Oh, who cares?
Oh, who cares?
I never root for that guy. I don't know who he is. With that in mind, let me give you some weekend Francesas. If you're new to the show, a Francesa is something that you are blissfully ignorant to or you're just completely over. It stems from Mike Francesa, the GOAT, when asked about Stan Lee dying, gave this answer.
Oh, who cares?
Because he didn't know who Stan Lee was because he doesn't read comics. So we've got a list of weekend Francesas to run down here in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia. Any bowl game not connected to the college football playoff.
Oh, who cares?
Reporting as an eligible receiver.
Oh, who cares?
Pop-Tarts.
Oh, who cares?
Peacock.
Oh, who cares?
Sean Payton.
Oh, who cares?
Russell Wilson.
Oh, who cares?
Jarrett Stidham.
Oh, who cares?
Josina Anderson.
Oh, who cares?
LeBron's 39th birthday.
Oh, who cares?
LeBron complaining about officials like an old man.
Oh, who cares?
Von Miller.
Oh, who cares?
The Philadelphia Eagles.
Oh, who cares?
The World Juniors.
Oh, who cares?
Fansville.
Oh, who cares?
David Tepper, petulant child.
Oh, who cares?
The Big Ten.
Oh, who cares?
Parades.
Oh, who cares?
Complimentary football.
Oh, who cares?
Gene winning the unsanctioned.
Oh, who cares?
Oh, come on.
Resting your starters.
Oh, who cares?
Times Square.
Oh, who cares?
Tommy DeVito's agent.
Oh, who cares?
Cheez-Its.
Oh, who cares?
The Winter Classic.
Oh, who cares?
Everyone's back to work today.
Oh, who cares?
Finally, your New Year's resolution.
Oh, who cares?
There you go. A list of Francesas for you in the sports bar.
Okay, I'm going to push back on 3 if I'm allowed to.
Of course.
You wanted to guess which one's
Well, you're upset that I said you're winning the unsanctioned isn't Francesa.
No, that's a Francesa. Nobody cares. That's fine.
Good.
There's 3 stories I think are interesting. You tell me which one you want to start first. Tepper. Okay, where this goes. The ending of the Dallas-Detroit game is fascinating to me.
Sure.
And also, let's start here. What are you doing if you're Sean Payton? Why would you take that job in the first place if you knew you looked at the contract? It's not like you made a mistake. You took that job knowing the cap figure of Russell Wilson. So I would just ask the question, why didn't you bite the bullet from the get-go?
Maybe you knew what you were getting into, but you just didn't really know what you were getting into. Again, this goes to the arrogance of NFL coaches. I can fix him. I can get him to play my way. I can get him to be different than he's been. You can't change people. Like, people at their core are still going to be who they are. And Russell Wilson, by all accounts, is a massive narcissist and a me-first guy and not a team guy at this point in his life and career. And everything that the fallout of all of this is fascinating, but ultimately, I don't care because the Broncos aren't going to be good with Sean Payton or whoever they trot out at quarterback. Russell Wilson's not going to be good if he stays in Denver or goes somewhere else. It doesn't matter to me. And Jarrett Stidham, who cares? Like, it's a story because it's the fascinating part about it is the financial part of it.
It's the financial part of it, how you're going to be in cap jail here, basically. Yes, the cap is real to a certain extent.
What is the dead cap figure? $88 million if they release him?
Yeah, now you can spread that over 2 years,
and
which
then
they will.
You would have to think that another team would take Wilson off your hands if they could get Denver to pay, or if you could get, if they release him, you would need another team basically to say, yeah, Russ, we'll sign you, but we're going to sign you for just over $1 million.
Yeah, something like that. Like the Broncos are not trading Russell Wilson. No team is going to give Denver anything for that. No, there's another interesting point on this. It's the idea that Wilson then, it was like the little jab at the end where the reporters pulled him aside and he discloses, well, you know what, they tried to get me to waive my injury guarantees back in week 5 or 6, wherever it was.
And then he went right to the players union.
Yeah. So what does this tell other potential free agents about Denver as a destination? The one thing you could say, Brandon Beane, he makes mistakes. He'll be the first to tell you he makes mistakes. I don't see him doing anything like that in season. In season seems kind of skeevy.
Yeah, I mean, the closest thing we've had to that was the Nyheim Hines situation, right? Like, there's a little bit of weirdness there during the preseason about how the Bills were going to proceed with that contract.
True.
And I have a feeling that it happens a lot more than we are led on to. But the idea that Russ went right to the players' union and basically aired all of the dirty laundry, the team that's paying him all of this money, that's the red flag that I think other teams are going to see. Like, oh, yeah, can he still play? Yeah, maybe. And again, head coaches are arrogant, so they're going to think, I can get him to play the way we need him to play. And there's a lot of teams that I think would be interested in Russell Wilson, but you're only going to pay Russell Wilson now as little as you can, maybe $1 million, just over $1 million for 1 year. And that's what Russ is going to be left with if they decide to move on from him.
He'd be a heck of a bridge quarterback. Yeah. Which would be ironic.
and if you're Sean Payton, you're basically saying, look, I'm going to be here. You're not. This is me long-term looking at what this team can be. And if we're going to do it, it's not going to happen in 1 year. And I've seen enough this year to know you ain't it, dude. I mean, the blow up on the sideline with Russ. I mean, that was just, it's unbecoming, but it's kind of a throwback, right? Like, you used to see players get chewed out all the time, and head coaches have become so homogenized and do so much of it behind closed doors. Peyton going off like that. Whew.
Well, I mean, maybe just Russ, like you said, is just so difficult to work with.
Well, the telltales were there from the very beginning of the season, right? Russ needs to stop worrying about kissing babies. Wasn't that his quote?
Yeah,
he needs
Russell
to stop running
Inc.
he needs to stop worrying about Russell Inc. and running for office and kissing babies and worry more about football. I mean, that's your head coach saying that about you. We get up in arms when Sean McDermott says, if we would have figured out what was wrong with Josh, we would have fixed it a long time ago. That's a fair statement. That's not him saying, if Josh Allen would stop doing all these endorsement ads and dating Hollywood starlets, maybe we wouldn't be. He ain't saying that. Sean Payton is saying that about his quarterback. It ain't going well. It ain't going to end well. I guess the element that's fascinating to me isn't any of the players involved. It isn't Sean Payton, because who cares? It isn't Russell Wilson, because who cares? Ultimately, I don't think either of them are going to be winners when it's all said and done. It's what happens next is fascinating.
Well, and there's another downside to this. Congratulations on the Kansas City Chiefs winning the division once again in 2024 and 2025 because, okay, Denver's messed up. The Raiders don't have a quarterback, and the Chargers are miles and miles away.
The Chiefs have ruined. The Chiefs have done to the AFC West what the Patriots did to the AFC East.
Yeah, they just
history repeating
messed
itself.
everybody up.
Yep.
Happy New Year, Brad in Rochester. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, guys. I'm just wondering how quickly is Sean Payton going to be turning the Denver Broncos into the New Orleans Saints in terms of cap casualties and cap overages left and right?
Yeah, I mean, he's never – it's a great point by Brad. I mean, when he was in New Orleans, it was all about Breeze and kicking the can down the road. And you had to live with – you were in cap hell all those seasons. You somehow found your way to be a competitive team and a postseason team a bunch of those times. But – boy, releasing Russell Wilson because you have an inability to work with him and get the most out of him. And I give him credit for getting what he got out of him this year. This year versus last year, Russell Wilson looks like a Hall of Famer again, right? Like compared to how he played last year when we were just relentlessly making fun of him. Sean Payton does not care about the salary cap. Zero. Does not care about the salary cap. It's a great point by Brad. The history is repeating itself in that regard as well, in that the Broncos are going to be in cap hell if they decide to move on from this guy.
The thing I want to say, too, and push back on the Lions and the ending there with the officiating. Sure, the officials screwed it up. Absolutely. Did the lines get jammed? Absolutely. How did they react? Not as poorly as you can, because you mean to tell me there's ever been a 2-point conversion before Saturday night from the 7-yard line in this league? Why would you not kick the extra point and go to overtime there?
You know what you're talking about.
That's a stubborn head coach.
You know what you're talking about.
Stubborn, pig-headed.
That's right.
It's going to cost him.
It's the arrogance of head coaching. And Dan Campbell is all gas, no brakes. Okay, you really think? Fine, we're going to run it anyways. We're going to do it anyways. We're going to try it anyways. The good news is our complaints about Sean McDermott, you can make those complaints about pretty much any coach for any team in the NFL. It's systematic to being a head coach. It's the arrogance of the position. We're going to go for it. We're going for 2. We're going for the win from the 7. The probability of that happening. Hey, look, if they do it, we're all talking about, if they make it, we're all talking about Dan Campbell being that guy.
You might have cost your team the number 2 seed.
Sure.
Because honestly, probably Dan Campbell, they're thinking, no, there's no way Philadelphia lost to Arizona.
Crazy.
The Cowboys, the left for dead, stinking Dallas Cowboys who lost to Buffalo and lost to Miami. And here they're going to be the number 2 seed. That's unbelievable. The last one I want to push back, and I think there's more to this story that's going to be coming up. I was worried that when Dan Snyder got kicked out of the league, we were done with a-hole owners. No. Oh, my gosh. This guy in Carolina is a different breed. If you haven't seen the video, Carolina losing to Jacksonville, I don't know in this video what led up to this, but the owner dumping a drink on Jaguar fans?
Basically threw his drink at a Jag fan. A Jag fan who's a paying customer of the Jacksonville Jaguars, going to a game and having the owner of the opposing team throw a drink. Wow. Yeah, that's, you say what you will about Snyder. We don't know what Tepper has, what skeletons he has in his closet. I don't remember Snyder throwing drinks in it. He's still A1 worst owner of all time, right? Just based on some of the things that have been alleged. Tepper is just a child. He's just a petulant child. I can't remember who put it out there. An excerpt from some article where he was interviewed. It might have been Mina Kimes from ESPN. I'm not properly sourcing. I apologize. Where he basically said he has thoughts, given his wealth, that when he's in a restaurant and he doesn't like the service at the restaurant, he could just buy the restaurant and fire the person who is providing him with bad service as his first order of business. I'm like, that's where your mind goes? You're an evil bastard. What is wrong with you, man? And that's who he is. And so now, as the billionaire owner of the Carolina Panthers, hey, look, if you're a Panther fan, you hope the NFL steps in and keeps him away from the team for the next 12 months, because that would actually probably benefit the team more than anything.
Every other owner loves having Tepper in the club because now he's the worst guy. Yep. He's the guy that is going to put out a team that can't win. Oh, normally when you have the worst record, you get the number 1 overall pick. Oh, congratulations, Danger. Enjoy that.
Yeah.
You're secretly loving this.
I've got a lot of thoughts on what the Bears could or should do, but the idea that they were able to get that number 1 first overall pick, that's foreshadowing at its finest, right? Like, yeah, we want your number 1 pick and we want next year's number 1 pick because we know how valuable that's going to be. And if you give us DJ Moore, we'll be okay with that too. And well, lo and behold, that deal looks pretty good for the pride of Section 5 there, Ryan Poles in Chicago. Maybe he can do it again this offseason heading into the draft. We'll see. Rasul Douglas. He's probably going to be your AFC Defensive Player of the Week, right? They announced that tomorrow, I want to say.
3 takeaways. 3. Well, he had 2 interceptions and the 1 batted ball that what interception by Ed Oliver, by the way, too. But yes, to think that you got that for a pick swap, Rasul Douglas, certainly a guy that stepped up for this team.
A man on a mission. When you talk about that game, he was the best player on the field, either side of the ball. The Buffalo Bills get that win on Sunday against New England. The Fan Rochester's Man on a Mission, brought to you by the Open Door Mission. Go to opendoormission.com. See how you can guarantee a win for someone today. Hey, we have more time for your phone calls. Rochester Americans head coach Seth Appert will be joining us here a little over an hour from now for last call. Our number is 866-4FAN, 585-866-4326. If you want to pull up a stool and join us, more next in the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia on the Fan.
Odyssey has sports for
And Rochester Sports Update.
Buffalo Bills are listed as 3-point favorites for their game in Miami Sunday. A win, and Buffalo wins the AFC East and is the 2 seed. A loss, coupled with wins by the Steelers and Jaguars, and the Bills would miss out on the playoffs altogether. Sean McDermott on those Dolphins.
It's going to be a big challenge. They're well coached. They have dynamic offensive players, dynamic defensive players, and special teams, and they do a great job with the explosive plays on offense and then creating big-time negative plays on defense. And like I said, this is going to be a big challenge for us.
Our coverage on the Fan will begin at 4 o'clock on Sunday. The New York Jets have released Dalvin Cook. Cook wants to join a team going to the playoffs. Don Granato returning to practice today for the Buffalo Sabres. Seth Appert, Amerks head coach, to join us at 5:45 today. Syracuse basketball tonight, playing at Duke. Gene Battaglia and the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Pull up a stool and join us. 585-866-4FAN. 866-432-6. The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
But that's the point. Keep everything the same. Seth's in the routine of a head coach, so you know all the details and all the things you got to think of and moving parts and pieces. So he's done it every day this year as a head coach. So for him, there's no change for him. And he has the support of all the other guys that are here every day. So the context of it. And, with that, I thought that was, obviously Kevin, and I thought that was the smoothest transition to do.
There's Sabres head coach Don Granato feeling better. Amerks head coach Seth Appert behind the bench for a couple of games here. That was a weird surprise to kind of tune in and be like, whoa, hey, there's our guy. What's he doing there?
His hair was looking exquisite on MSG.
Yeah, he looks like an NHL head coach, man. It's just a matter of time. I don't want to wish that time away. We love catching up with Seth Appert of the Rochester Americans. He'll be joining us before we close up shop for last call here next hour in the Sports Bar. We'll get his take on everything that went down.
See, the one thing, and I don't know the answer to this, maybe somebody could fill me in. Who coached the Amerks then? Was it Page? Was it possible? Did they split the duties when the team went to Utica Saturday?
Yeah, we'll get all that information from Seth when he joins us next hour. We had a great conversation with Matt Perino of the Syracuse Post-Standard last hour, and what we wanted to kind of learn a little bit more about. I mean, we recap the win on Sunday against the Patriots, look ahead to the AFC East Championship game coming up here on Sunday night. But what's up with the usage of Stephon Diggs, the lack of production here the last few weeks? It was something that Matt Perino actually asked Bills head coach Sean McDermott yesterday on the Media Zoo.
But it just feels like something's been up with Steph and can't really put your finger on it. Obviously, there's no medical issue. The snap percentages come down. Production isn't there. Can you just take me into, what maybe has been ailing him or hindering him from some of the production that I think people are used to seeing from him?
I mean, medically, there's nothing big that's been, to my knowledge, ailing him, and the communication I'm getting from Nate, our trainer, on that. And it's just Josh going through his reads and going through his progressions and making sure that, we're making sure we're going through the progressions properly and getting Steph involved. As to your point, he hasn't been as involved maybe as much as we would have liked the last couple of games. But we've got to continue to, just like all three phases of our team, in this case, our offenses, continue to develop, continue to improve, and find production through the progression.
Mm-hmm. And then, there's been a couple of times fans specifically have pointed out where he hasn't been out there on some bigger third downs over the last couple of weeks. You've been with him a while now. Like, when he is out there in those gotta have it moments, especially late in games, what does he bring in those moments?
Oh, he's a factor. He's a big factor for us. He brings so much energy and vibe to our team, to our offense. Let's just start there, and then collectively to our team. So he's a valued member of our team, in particular our offense, and we're going to need him down the stretch here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's not telling you anything there, right? Like, that's typical Sean McDermott coach speak, but the thing that always will give me pause with Sean McDermott, especially on the topic of Stephon Diggs, is I just can't believe what he's saying when he's talking about this specific member of his team. And that's based on history, right? Flat out lied during minicamp about Steph Diggs and his availability. Not being at camp when he was at camp, the misproper words and everything that kind of went around that. Now, when I hear him talking about Diggs, I don't know how much of it is real. I don't know how much of it is genuine. He's not really giving you anything there to chew on anyways, but could Diggs be hurt? I wouldn't rule it out.
I am just wondering if we are just dangerously close to the end of the Diggs era in Buffalo. Hear me out. I mean, we have to look at the possibility that this is going to come to a crash landing here. I am not counting on the Tennessee Titans or the Pittsburgh Steelers. It'd be nice to have that as a fallback, but in a world where the Bills look kind of Billsy on Sunday night, how does that look? What does Diggs do at that point? Or is Diggs just like, okay, I'm out, move me along here? I'm getting ahead of the storyline here, but I just want to point that out to everybody with the way the season has gone here over these last 4 or 5 games here for Diggs in particular. This is not trending in the right direction.
There was also followed up there, the questioning to Sean McDermott was followed up by Tim Graham of The Athletic, asking a follow-up question. You heard Perino ask a question and then give a follow-up question. Tim Graham wasn't afforded a follow-up question. This was his Q&A with Sean McDermott yesterday.
Sean, I wanted to circle back regarding Stephon Diggs. And as Matt Perino had pointed out, the snap counts are down too. You mentioned Josh with the progressions, but I'm more curious about the plays where he's not even on the field. Why is he down to 65% of the snaps recently?
Well, I think some plays are obviously tagged for other personnel groups, and some just Steph needs a break right there, and so it's a probably a combination of both of them. 10 more than
lies.
Anything.
Steph needs a break. Steph needs a break. Khalil Shakir had more snaps on Sunday than Steph Diggs. I don't believe McDermott. I don't believe he's being truthful here with us. We joke about McDermott McLies when he heaps praise on opponents, but then there are actual moments where I'm like, oh no, he's actually lying. 65% of the snap share. Are you telling Joe Brady to dial back, different configurations where you have Diggs out there? What is this? Why is arguably your best offensive weapon not on the field for more than 60 to 65% of the snaps in games that you have to have him? I don't believe him.
Can someone explain why he wasn't on the field for the first series in the second half? And Matt Perino pointed this out, like Joe Brady, well, no, there wasn't a third down that he was. No, you put Sherfield ahead of Diggs on a third down. And the explanation from McDermott about personnel groupings, lie. Name me one personnel grouping where you wouldn't want Stephon Diggs.
Or you shouldn't have him. Like, he should be out there in every group. Like, he's your one. There's something happening with this offense. And I'm not saying it revolves specifically around Diggs. Josh Allen hasn't looked himself the last 2 weeks as well. But I also think that the head coach, now with a few weeks of Joe Brady under his belt, you get the sense that he's meddling in things that maybe he doesn't need to be meddling in.
So where maybe the previous offensive coordinator, hey, always dig Allen to Diggs, that's a safe play.
Sure, yes, but also, like, I think it's curious that they muted Graham and he wasn't able to ask a follow-up because he had a follow-up and they didn't give it to him, and the press conference ended after he gave that response to Tim Graham. It was almost as if they knew, like, all right, we're getting peppered here with Diggs questions. We don't want this to go in this direction.
Okay, so fair to say the moderator knows the deal. The moderator, that's the job. Like, no, we can't. There's a story here. Sorry.
Right.
So
no more questions about Diggs. You mentioned how many? You mentioned a percentage. No more questions about Diggs. That's alarming to me. It's alarming to me that he's being used that much less, unless there is a physical reason, unless there's an injury there.
Well,
because otherwise,
if that's the case, why isn't he on the report?
That's right.
Like, we're going back to that.
That's right. I just don't believe anything that comes out of his mouth specifically on this topic, anything having to do with Diggs. I do believe when he says that the guy brings juice, energy, electricity, he does all of that. We see that with our own eyes. We hear that from everybody. We see it when we're at camp. You see it on the field. He does bring a level of energy and juice to that offense when he's on the field. So why wouldn't you want him out there more than 60 to 65% of the snaps? Makes no sense to me. Steph needs a rest? Needs a rest? What are we talking about here? Load management in the NFL? It couldn't be. I thought that was an interesting takeaway from yesterday's Zoom press conference. The Bills get back on the practice field tomorrow. We'll have our first injury report of the week. Josh Allen's shoulder, he took a stinger there at the end of the game.
Yeah, if you watch closely, you could see him just trying to shake his hand there, like it must have went numb or something
loose
like
feeling
that.
in your hand, sure. Claiming he's never had that happen to him before. It's got to freak you out a little bit, but all indications are that it shouldn't affect his practice participation this week leading into Sunday night.
That's the biggest game of the year for the Buffalo Bills, stating the obvious here. You can call us at 866-4FAN, or you can write to us. Our handle is The Fan Rochester, as Mike did. This Sunday seems like a Josh Allen legacy game. These are the type of games that the greats win, regardless of how the season ends up. The result Sunday will shade the entire offseason.
Yes. But I can't help but think these are also the moments where we've seen this team fold in the past. High-pressure situations. We've seen this team throughout the course of this season. As the pressure in a game gets ratcheted up, they look more discombobulated. Go back and just think about every instance where it came down to the wire. They lost a one-score game. They just, in high-pressure situations, they don't perform their best. I'm more nervous about that than anything else going into Sunday. The fact that it is a high-pressure, high-stakes game, I don't have the confidence that a team coached by Sean McDermott can pull it together in that situation this season. I just haven't seen enough of it this year to believe that. Name a game. Was it the Giants game maybe?
Yeah.
A high-pressure game where you came away with a win despite your best efforts of losing the game? That said, Josh Allen owns Miami. The Bills have had success against the Dolphins. Sean McDermott has figured out ways defensively to thwart the weapons on the Miami offensive side of the ball. I'm not sure which direction I'm leaning yet, Gino. I feel really torn on this one.
Well, this would be the biggest road victory for Sean McDermott, right, in his career. He's never won on the road in the postseason. Like, all the wins have been at home, and you've lost at Arrowhead, and you've lost at Arrowhead, and, well, you've lost at Arrowhead.
Sure.
And let's not forget it, you lost at Houston, too.
Right.
So there's been some losses, mix in the loss at Cincinnati. So, yeah, this is as close to a playoff game. In fact, it will be a playoff game if the other teams take care of their business here.
Yeah, the scenarios as they play out. And the Bills will know by Sunday night exactly what their lot in life is because all the games will have been completed, obviously. Saturday, you've got the Steelers early taking on Baltimore, and basically Baltimore's practice squad, right? I mean, Baltimore's going to be resting their starters knowing that they've got the 1 seed locked up. So Pittsburgh knows that they need to have it. To think that Baltimore could still beat Pittsburgh with their B team, I guess it's possible.
It's Mason Rudolph, though.
That's the thing we forget. It is still your third string quarterback, who I know Steeler fans are very excited. And Steeler fans, they're Steelers. They always seem to find a way. They're very reminiscent of what we've seen from the Bills this year. I don't know if you knew that Sean McDermott and Mike Tomlin went to William and Mary together, Gene.
No.
But they're becoming the same person. Sean McDermott has become a team that just plays up or down to the level of the competition. A lot of similarities here, what we're seeing between these two organizations and these two teams. And then the Jacksonville game. Jacksonville and Tennessee. I don't know. They'll know by Sunday night just how important that W is. Or they'll know, well, this is really for us to get the 2 seed more than anything.
Yeah, or what would be the scenario? They'd be the 6. So would you let's phrase this another way. Would you rather go? You'd rather be home, of course, rather than go to Kansas City in the divisional round. But of all the teams that you could face as a 2, which one would you like to see and which one would you not like to see?
Well, you wouldn't see the Browns.
You couldn't see the Browns.
You wouldn't see the Browns. So
I'm going to give you the one because I don't know if they too young to know any better. Houston would scare me, C.J. Stroud. I think he would make plays if the Texans ended up as the 7.
I would also say the Colts. would make me a little like Shane Steichen. The idea that we're talking about them being a playoff contender with Gardner Minshew.
Wasn't that long ago Jonathan Taylor ran for 5 touchdowns over the Bills?
Jonathan Taylor. Yeah. There's plenty to be nervous about, even if you are hosting as a 2 seed. Well, we're looking forward to Sunday. You'll be able to hear the action on the Fan Rochester. Our pregame coverage Sunday afternoon gets underway at 4 o'clock with kickoff happening just after 8 o'clock from Miami.
Peter writing in, welcome back, Gene and Danger. Both teams are not great. Well, Happy New Year, Peter. Both teams not great high-pressure teams, but I trust the Bills a tad more than the Dolphins. I guess maybe that's what this comes down to. The Dolphins are so banged up.
Well, what I would also say is, say what you want about the Bills this season. They haven't lost to anybody by 40 points. They got blown out last week. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you're not expecting them to get blown out 2 weeks in a row, or is that just what the Dolphins are? Are the Dolphins just a team that can beat good to mediocre teams, but cannot beat the best teams that are out there? They're going to beat up on inferior opponents. They get the win against Dallas, but they lose to Tennessee. That's in a lot of ways it's like what the Bills are, except the Bills have beaten some teams that are above 500. You've got a couple of nice wins on your resume with that Dallas win, with that Kansas City win. It just feels like Dallas was so long ago. We were raving about how good that offense looked. 2 weeks go by, and you're like, can we please apply a new layer of deodorant to this offense?
Yeah, I thought that we would be having the box wine that you gave me for Christmas. No, I think it was all gone by the time that Charger game was over. So.
Speaking of box wine, hashtag box wine mafia, let's get to happy hour. Next in the sports bar, we have plenty of time for your calls at 866-4FAN, 585-866-4326. That's a Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub wingman line. Lots to get to, lots to unpack from what has been a busy, week and a half that we've been gone, and coming back now and looking ahead to Sunday afternoon, the Buffalo Bills. And we'll also be joined by Seth Appert, Rochester Americans head coach, who had a couple of games stint behind the bench for the Sabres last week as well. That's coming up about an hour from now. And last call, all on the way here on the Fan Rochester.
Odyssey has sports for every fan. Keep up with your favorite teams from across the
Rochester, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Fan, Rochester, sports update.
Buffalo Bills start out as 3-point favorites in their game in Miami Sunday night. A win over the Dolphins. Buffalo wins the AFC East and is the 2 seed. A loss, though, coupled with wins by the Steelers and Jaguars, and the Bills will be out altogether. Sean McDermott confident in his defense.
Yeah, I think it's more than anything. I think it's the rushing coverage working together and the communication that we're developing with the back seven, right? Making sure everyone's on the same page, everyone understands the vision, the game plan, and the purpose and the theme that week. And so I credit those guys in the back end, but also the front with their ability to rush the passer.
Our coverage on The Fan will begin at 4 o'clock on Sunday. The Jets releasing Dalvin Cook. Cook wants to join a team going to the playoffs. Don Granado returning to practice today for the Buffalo Sabres. We'll talk to Seth Appert later this hour. Syracuse at Duke tonight. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader. The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Bills 27, Patriots 21.
But how fun is this? Buffalo at Miami for the division.
For the AFC East Division crown in South Florida, and it's going to be for the number 2 seed in the AFC.
Sunday night football. I'm going to Miami.
Josh has done great against Miami. McDermott seems to have the way to neutralize Tyreek Hill. What a great comeback that would be, and a great story if we can go into Miami and win it.
Touchdown Miami!
Their schematics are almost revolutionary.
Mike Danger.
You're in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia, back from our long holiday break, and also Happy New Year to you and yours. The calendar flips to 2024.
Gene Battaglia.
This is it for Buffalo. There are no excuses now. You have this division within your sights. This should be the AFC East now for the Buffalo Bills, hands down.
So it'll be Washington and Michigan for the national championship.
The Kraken a 3-0 win over Vegas at the Winter Classic.
Here we are.
Let's go! 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Happy hour in the sports bar. Appreciate you stopping by. However you may be listening, 95.7 FM, AM 950, the free to download Odyssey app. Maybe you're watching The Fan Rochester on YouTube, The Fan Rochester on Twitch, on your smart device when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan. And your calls at 866-4FAN, 866-4326, the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line. I'm Mike Danger. Over there, that's Gene Battaglia.
This would be the biggest win on the road for McDermott, would it not?
Yes. The thing that's unfortunate is it shouldn't have even come down to this, right? Like, when you look back at this season, I have a feeling that if it doesn't go the Bills' way, there'll be a play or two in the Miami game where we'll be like, oh, well, this happened, or the ref blew this call, or Josh threw this interception, if it doesn't go our way. And we'll laser focus on that one thing instead of the bigger picture here, which is you lost a bad game to New England earlier in the year. You blew the Broncos game. You walked through your London trip against Jackson. Like, bad losses that you're outclassed by Cincinnati. Bad losses in conference that cost you a chance to be the 2 seed.
That being said, okay, because I think we all can agree that last year's regular season much better than this year's regular season. You're going to end up with the same result. If you win in Miami, same result. I mean, literally, you could say this year's a better result because last year you actually needed kind of a coin flip, literally, from Cincinnati to get that 2 seed.
That's right. Yeah, and last year, the way the season ended, the regular season ended last year, I think the potential for this regular season to end better. Hey, look, they haven't had the quote-unquote off-field adversities that they had last year. There was a lot of juggling and a lot of moving parts, and then on top of that, the DeMar Hamlin situation that you worked your way through. But what I don't know, and what we don't know, what we may never know, is there something going on behind the scenes with this offense and Joe Brady and Sean McDermott? Look, the offense for the Bills the last 2 weeks has kind of looked like the offense earlier this season when Ken Dorsey was there. All of a sudden, Joe Brady's not what we thought he was. What's happening here? Is it a personnel thing? Is it the quarterback? Is it the head coach meddling with the offensive coordinator or the offensive game plan? I mean, he looks the head coach. He has the right to do it if he wants to. I don't know that it's the right thing to do. But when pressed about Stephon Diggs' usage by Matt Perino, who joined us earlier this afternoon in the sports bar. Sean McDermott didn't really give any answers. When pressed about it even further by Tim Graham of The Athletic yesterday in his Zoom call, and pointing out that Steph Diggs' usage is as low as 60 to 65%. Perino pointing out that Khalil Shakir had more snaps on Sunday for the Bills than Steph Diggs. Something going on?
Yeah, the whole beginning of the second half was weird to me, Danger, where Diggs isn't out there for the opening drive, and then the second drive, he's the last one to come out, and he's getting fist bumps and little, not high fives, but little handshakes
getting support
from his teammates.
Yeah.
Which kind of tipped me off, like that looked different. This is the second drive of the third quarter. What were we saying to
almost
Steph
like
here?
welcome back to the game.
Yeah.
Welcome back in.
What are we doing? Like I don't know anything, but to me, it just seems like there's a potential for a story here.
We may never know unless one of Ty Dunn's 25 super secret sources, unnamed sources, does some work for us. But maybe someday we'll find out. But we won't find out anytime soon. But it is a bit curious that he wasn't out there, that arguably your best player on offense is out there for 60 to 65% of the snaps. Are you using the Patriots game as a audition for Khalil Shakir's future?
Or, I go back to there's something else going on here, because when you listen to Matt Perino ask the question and Sean McDermott give his answer, I think the lie detector would go off here.
This was yesterday's media Zoom with Bills head coach Sean McDermott and Matt Perino asking specifically about Stephon Diggs.
But it just feels like something's been up with Steph and can't really put your finger on it. Obviously, there's no medical issue. The snap percentages come down. Production isn't there. Can you just take me into, what maybe has been ailing him or hindering him from some of the production that I think people are used to seeing from him?
Medically, there's nothing big that's been, to my knowledge, ailing him, and the communication I'm getting from Nate, our trainer, on that, and it's just Josh going through his reads and going through his progressions and making sure that, we're making sure we're going through the progressions properly and getting Steph involved. As to your point, he hasn't been as involved maybe as much as we would have liked the last couple of games. But we've got to continue to, just like all three phases of our team, in this case, our offenses, continue to develop, continue to improve, and find production through the progression.
Mm-hmm. And then, there's been a couple of times fans specifically have pointed out where he hasn't been out there on some bigger third downs over the last couple of weeks. You've been with him a while now. Like, when he is out there in those gotta have it moments, especially late in games, what does he bring in those moments?
Oh, he's a factor. He's a big factor for us. He brings so much energy and vibe to our team, to our offense. Let's just start there, and then collectively to our team. So he's a valued member of our team, in particular our offense, and we're going to need him down the stretch here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe him. I didn't hit the dinger because we're not playing McDermott McLies. This isn't him heaping praise on an unworthy opponent like he does when we like to point out his McLies. This is just something where I struggle with believing anything that comes out of his mouth on the topic of Steph Diggs, because the precedent has been set based on how the offseason went in the mandatory minicamp, where you could say he misspoke, or you could just flat out say, yeah, he lied. Steph Diggs isn't at camp, or isn't here, and that's a big concern. It's a major concern. And Diggs calling him out on that by saying, well, what are you talking about? I'm here. You sent me home. I don't know that has no lingering effect into what has gone on this season, but that's something that's got to remain in the McDermott bank of memories.
No,
here.
like the one, like it's the personnel packages. What personnel package would you not want your number one receiver on the field? It was all, and you could say, well, is it a health thing? We're not talking about this if Josh Allen hits Diggs over the middle there, that should have gone for 70 yards. Sure. Honestly, so it's something, though, that if we project, and here's we can talk about the best case scenario, and we're joined by Matt Perino. I kind of got the feeling that he's going to take the Bills to win this game and be the number 2 seed. And look, he's painting the best case scenario where you avoid the team nobody wants to face. That would be the Cleveland Browns. And maybe the Cleveland Browns, or Joe Flacco, can you imagine in the divisional round beating Baltimore? Oh my gosh, the Bills would, if they take care of their business, host the AFC Championship.
What an
game?
unbelievable story, by the way. If the Browns and the Ravens face up in the division, Joe Flacco against the team that left
Bills
him for
fans
dead.
are going to be mad at me when I say this. Your AFC comeback player, your NFL comeback player of the year is Joe Flacco.
It's a smaller sample size. It's an unbelievable story. I think Baker Mayfield might have a case if they make the postseason.
But
Damar Hamlin was the guy that we thought, for sure. But
sure.
Damar Hamlin has just been kind of out of sight, out of mind. And hey, look, if you don't win comeback player of the year, that's fine. You're here.
Yes.
You won life. Congratulations. I think that the Flacco story is fantastic. Man, that would be an unbelievably dramatic game. I would love that. But it more than anything to me it shines a light on that in the NFL, which doesn't get the light shined on it bright enough, and that's offensive line play, man. I mean, like, that offensive line is good. They've protected him, and you can put any quarterback back there, and Kevin Stefanski knows what he's talking about with offense as well. So you've got a good situation, whereas if that was Joe Flacco last year at this time behind a Jets offensive line that's porous, we're not having that conversation.
I'm gonna lasso you. I'm gonna bring you back to the Bills here, because I was pointing the best case scenario. The best case scenario. Here's the way it's gonna lay out. Now let me present to you the worst case scenario. Pittsburgh wins, Jacksonville wins, and we have another Bills loss that we're just shaking our head and saying, "Oh, that was fitting." Bringing it back to Steph Diggs. Now what? If the Bills lose this game, are we potentially talking about this being the last game for Steph Diggs in a Buffalo Bills uniform?
Are you trading Steph Diggs in the offseason?
No, you're definitely not. And Brandon Beane, I'm sure you're holding on to this guy, unless he is going to he was sending out signals last year.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know that I buy into him doing that. I don't know that I would see him doing that. I don't think, for all of the talk that we had around him when he came to Buffalo about his time out of Minnesota, him getting out of Minnesota, I don't know how much of that was Diggs and how much of that was the people around Diggs or the team, portraying it in a certain light. It would suck. But at the same time, tell me that you didn't watch some of the college football playoffs, see some of these receivers and be like, ooh, Roma Dunze. Ooh, that's a nice player. I mean, he's gone by the time the Bills are picking. You would have to be pretty aggressive if you're Brandon Beane to go up and get one of those guys.
Well, I know another team in the AFC East that really needs receivers really, really badly. It rhymes with Schmanza Smitty.
Yeah.
You're going to have to trade up and get your guy.
That's right.
Diggs' cap hit next year, if you decided to move on, would be $31 million in dead cap.
Eesh.
And we don't know what's going on with Von Miller. No, I want Diggs as part of this team. I know Bills fans feel the same way.
Most Bills fans. I think there's still a faction of Bills fans
I've encountered those Bills fans.
That Diggs is a problem. The diva wide receiver is a problem. I'm sorry. You need your best players on the field to win football games.
So what is it, though? What is it? Is it the arrogance of McDermott?
I think that it could be the arrogance of a head coach.
Or could it be the coach is telling his new handpicked offensive coordinator, this is the way I want the offense to be, to diversify.
Don't show all your cards. We're going into the postseason, or we need to keep things. We can't show our hand. We can't tip our hand. We don't want future opponents to get any film of us doing remarkable things on offense, even if it means we lose a game here or there. It's just ridiculous to me. The outcome might not be what we want it to be on Sunday, and if it is, that's a shame. And we'll cherry pick and look at things from Sunday and be like, well, if they only had this, or if that didn't have, instead of looking at the bigger picture, which throughout the course of the season, this was a team that lost games they should have won. There was a lack of attention to detail, and you even saw it on Sunday. I mean, when the game started the way it started, didn't you just say to yourself, oh, here we go again?
Well, Matthew Smiley, I think you need to polish that resume.
Yes, we've already identified this offseason's scapegoat.
Like talking to Perino, too, it's like, can we stop with the core special teams guys? I'm fine if you have a top 5 unit. There are now 3 games that you can point to. 2 which resulted in losses. The Denver game, and we look past the Jet game.
You gave up a overtime punt return. Terrible. It's a little bit curious. I don't think it's a distraction going into this week. I just thought that was you recognized it. I think a lot of fans probably recognized it at the game. Like, where's Diggs? Why is Sherfield out there? What's going on? What's happening?
Yeah. Can we just say, too, that the bargain basement thing didn't work out? Hardy might have been good in New Orleans.
They're guys.
Sherfield's just a guy.
They're guys. Maybe Shakir is more, and maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's we want to see if Shakir can handle a bigger workload. Maybe they're viewing him as a guy that is their future. God, I hope they have higher expectations. I like Shakir, but I don't see Shakir as an immediate upgrade or a 1 as soon as next season. No chance. And I certainly don't feel Gabe Davis is that either. So what is it? If you eliminate all of these things, what is it? Why is Diggs' usage down? Not the production, the usage. The production, you could say, you could accept McDermott's answer about scheme and you could accept all of that just looking at his production. But his usage, he's only out there for 60 to 65% of the snaps. Tim Graham followed up Matt Perino's question to Sean McDermott about Diggs and basically doubled down and didn't get the opportunity to ask a follow-up, which is curious.
Sean, I wanted to circle back regarding Stephon Diggs. And as Matt Perino had pointed out, the snap counts are down too. You mentioned, Josh, with the progressions, but I'm more curious about the plays where he's not even on the field. Why is he down to 65% of the snaps recently?
Well, I think some plays are obviously tagged for other personnel groups, and some just Steph needs a break right there, and so it's a probably a combination of both of them. 10 more than
lying.
He's not asking for a break on 40% of his snaps. Personnel groups. Explain to me the personnel grouping where you don't want your number 1 wide receiver, one of the top 5 in the game. Lies.
Flat out lying to Tim Graham. Just flat out lying. Not. So to answer the question, what is it? It's the arrogance of an NFL head coach. It's not just Sean McDermott. It's the arrogance of all NFL head coaches. I know what's best.
I came away wondering if there was some internal discipline, honestly. Like, why would you do that to yourself? I'm trying to come up with explanations.
Yeah, it's possible. But again, this is a symptom of the position. Arthur Smith, you drafted Bijan Robinson. You invested all of that draft capital in Bijan Robinson. Rational coach would use Bijan Robinson. No, not going to do it.
We think you're going to do it, but no, I'm going to do something different.
Sean Payton, a rational coach would understand that Russell Wilson, given all of his flaws, still gives you the best chance to win a football game over Jarrett Stidham, but you're going to bench him for a variety of reasons. I'm not saying Russell Wilson is in the right, by the way. But again, that's the arrogance of the head coach. You saw it in Minnesota this weekend in their game. Nick Mullins is going to be wild and erratic and turn the ball over. But Nick Mullins gives you a better chance than the slappy they started that game with against the Packers. Get out of here with that. You finally come to your senses at halftime and give the ball back to Mullins. The assumption of rational coaching. I heard it first from Sigmund Bloom from Football Guys, and through the lens of fantasy football, right? Because that's where it's most maddening when you start a player thinking, oh, he's going to produce, and then you say and then you have a coach who's going to get him out there for 60 to 65% of the snaps. That's Steph Diggs, man.
Well, there's some things, Danger, I would think would be logical, which we haven't seen. Like, who would you, gentle Bills fan, rather see when Cook isn't on the field? And Ty Johnson. I think we've seen enough of Latavius Murray. I think it's time for playoff Lenny to get activated.
Yeah, except what do coaches love?
Well, trust.
They trust and love the guy that knows their assignment. You're going to block? You're going to be able to block? You're going to be able to pick up that blitz?
I don't know. If Tom Brady trusted the guy, I would think that's good enough for me.
Sean McDermott is not you. Or he's crazy. right? They're all nuts. There is something rotten in Denmark, and hopefully that they can get it sorted out here in time for a game on Sunday night where you have a chance to win the division somehow. It's after they get the win. You turn the ball over 4 times, and it's still close against that poor team.
That's the thing, Danger. Like, you scored only 20 points, and you had the best possible 20 offensive points, the best possible field position. Really. And credit McDermott in the defense. I guess, like Rasul Douglas, what a find by Brandon Beane.
Oh, absolutely. When it's said and done, that'll be what for every Kelvin Benjamin, we now have a Rasul Douglas, right? Like, that was a great identification of a glaring need, right? And plugging your finger in the dam, because when you lose Trey White, you recognize we're not going to make it very far this season with Dane Jackson and Christian Benford. We need somebody who's got a little bit more in the tank. Douglas is that guy. They found him, and he's worked out unbelievably. He's going to be your AFC Defensive Player of the Week when that gets announced. What is it, tomorrow?
Tomorrow, yeah.
All right, we're going to take a break. We got a round of shots coming up. Want to make sure we have plenty of time for Amerks head coach Seth Thappert, who will join us for last call before we wrap up at 6. But we got a round of shots next here in the Sports
Yeah,
Bar.
we haven't talked much college football. We've got a great championship game coming up 6 nights from now. ESPN apologizing for something they aired last night. Yeah, I would think that maybe you need, I don't know, producers, editors that catch this sort of thing. Yes, we will talk some golf and, Sabres update too, because, well, I guess we have to talk about the Sabres.
Yeah. That's on the way next. A round of shots in the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia on the Fan.
Odyssey has sports
Rochester Sports Update.
Buffalo Bills are listed as 3-point favorites for their game in Miami Sunday night. A win over the Dolphins, and the Bills will win the AFC East. They would be the 2 seed. However, on the other side, a loss coupled by wins with the Steelers and Jaguars, the Bills will be out altogether. Head coach Sean McDermott on this week's opponent.
It's going to be a big challenge. They're well coached. They have dynamic offensive players, dynamic defensive players, and special teams. And they do a great job with the explosive plays on offense and then creating big-time negative plays on defense. And like I said, this is going to be a big challenge for us.
Our coverage on the Fan will begin at 4 o'clock on Sunday. The New York Jets have granted the release of running back Dalvin Cook. Cook wants to join a team going to the playoffs. Don Granato returned to practice for the Sabres today. We'll be joined by Amerks head coach Seth Appert later this hour. Syracuse basketball tonight playing at Duke. Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader, The Fan, Rochester.
Got a smart speaker at home? Listen to the Sports Leader, The Fan, Rochester at home by asking it to play 95.7 The Fan.
All right, so the majority of college bowl season was a snooze fest. Exhibition games, felt like preseason NFL football, just not really worth our time. And then yesterday with that Rose Bowl and that Sugar Bowl, the college football playoff got it right. The committee got it right, and then next year the expansion, I mean, I think that increases our chances here of more relevant college football games late December and January.
Yeah, we would still get some blowouts because Florida State getting in, I don't know what they would look like. But on the other hand, though, what great games we had yesterday. And we're going to get a different national championship game. Washington against Michigan. BetQL has the Wolverines giving 5.5 points. The over and under for this game set at 55.5. And we're all expecting this to be the last game for Harbaugh in Michigan, right? Well, Jim Harbaugh has hired Don Yee representing also Tom Brady and Sean Payton.
Yeah, feels like it. He's been through a lot. They've been through a lot. That program, I don't know. I think I saw people asking, should there be an asterisk? Is this? I'm not putting any tarnish on this at all. That's a hard thing to do, to beat the teams that they've beaten. That defense. Do you want to talk about things we don't talk enough about? How good that defense is. That's they deserve to be, and they got it right. I mean, Michigan, Washington is going to be remarkable on Monday night. I can't wait.
Yeah, and Penix, what a comeback story for him. ESPN apologizing for something they aired last night. Coming out of a commercial break, they show a scene. They present as a live scene, which really it wasn't, of Bourbon Street.
Oh.
And a woman flashing her breast.
Does that happen on Bourbon Street?
It does. I've heard about this.
I had no idea. So what happens? You walk on, just walking down the street, somebody may flash a breast at you?
I thought that only happened during Mardi Gras Danger for Beads.
Wow.
The statement, we regret that this happened and apologize that the video aired in the telecast. I guess maybe we've evolved some, because where's all the outrage like there was for Janet Jackson?
Outrage over a boob? Have you ever been to Bourbon Street?
I have not been to New Orleans, no.
The outrage would have been if what they showed was impressive. Like, Janet's impressive. These are not spectacular. I didn't see it. I missed it. But I've been to Bourbon Street. I've been to New Orleans during Mardi Gras. So
you're saying there's things like you don't want to see.
I don't need to see that. I didn't. By the way, I didn't even ask to see it. Yes, I'm wearing beads, but for somebody, this is what happened to me. This was my experience on Bourbon Street. A woman, much older than me at the time. I went in my 20s. Much older than me at the time. Just kind of walked up to me, grabbed the beads off my neck, flashed, and then kept walking. And I'm like, I didn't need to see that. I really was not impressed. Now, maybe there'd be more outrage. Whoa. Because it was just kind of, it almost becomes like background noise if you're on Bourbon Street. It's like, oh, there's something else I didn't need to see. Another thing I didn't need to see. Oh, there's a guy with his pants around his ankles. Didn't need to see that either. What are we doing?
Hey, if you go to Bourbon Street, you know what you're getting into. If I want to watch the college football game, I don't need to see that like I did last night. Yeah. There was something that aired last night, too. Did you catch the promo? Yes. January 1st, we have our first promo for the Masters. Danger, we're only a mere 3 months away from the celebration of wealth.
Do you think, I mean, we haven't really done a deeper dive into what golf looks like moving forward. Since, the last bit of news was John Rahm, right? John Rahm flipping over to LIV, but nobody's really the Masters. The majors,
and then nothing,
nothing else really matters, right? The majors, and then GTFO.
I think most of us are fine with this. Well, look, for this week though, you don't have to wait that long for golf. This week it's the Century in Kapalua, Hawaii, $20 million purse. That's going to bring out the bigger names. Now, John Rahm is the defending champ. Of course, he's not going to be there. As you mentioned, he jumped over, but everyone else should be there. And remember, this is primetime golf this week. No post-holiday blues from you or anybody else, Danger. Just
I don't know, man.
Turn it on. Look at the warm weather. 6 o'clock Thursday on the Golf Channel and NBC.
It is, though, that it does have some effect on you, right? Watching the Rose Bowl yesterday or watching this coming weekend when you see the blue skies and you're like, oh, that's what it looks like. Oh, everybody looks so comfortable. Nobody looks cold. Nobody's bundled up. Everybody's just out and enjoying themselves. And I have a friend who's in Hawaii who spends his winters in Hawaii, and he always is sending me, here's me on the golf course today. Hey, golfed again today. Look at the. I don't need to see it, man. I'm jealous. I'm insanely jealous.
That's Tim in San Diego.
Oh,
I'm golfing here in La Jolla on Christmas Day, everybody. Look at this here. Don Granado returning to practice today for the Buffalo Sabres. Granado missing the last 2 games as he was under the weather. It was Amerks head coach Seth Appert getting the call up. Buffalo winning in overtime against Columbus, then falling to Ottawa Sunday night. We learned today that Captain Calapozo, week to week with a lower body injury. We're going to talk to head coach Seth Appert here coming up.
So many questions. And Seth has always been very candid with us, so can't wait to get him on here in just a few.
Finally, the reality is setting in. It's looking more and more like this is going to be the final week for Bill Belichick as the head coach of the New England Patriots. Doing his weekly radio hit on WEEI, the coach today says he's focused on the Jets, but did make one promise at the end.
I appreciate, as always, you taking the time this week, and we'll give you the opportunity to get to work and get ready for the Jets. Thank you very much, Bill Belichick.
All right, you're welcome, Greg. If I was going to do anything, I'd put it out there on, Twitter and my face so everybody could see it, but I don't.
You're saving it for the
If I don't do that, then I'll just keep it private.
You're saving it for social media. That's what you're doing.
That's Bill Belichick's attempt at being witty?
My face. Like he made a my face joke.
Was it my face, or did he actually say MySpace?
No, he. If you listen carefully, he
combined
the two. It's the subtle humor of Bill Belichick.
So clever, but good job.
Actually, he should do it that way. Thank you, Patriots, for all.
That's Bill Belichick telling the entire globe, "I'm better than you." Because I don't even subscribe to this social media thing, and if I did, I'm gonna make you feel shame for even acknowledging that it exists. Like, if I'm gonna do it, that's where I'm gonna do it on this thing that I know exists, but I'm gonna call it my face. It's so clever, so witty, so much better than all of us. Bill Belichick, everybody. Hi-oh, nice joke to wrap up the hit. Is that his last one? That would be his last one.
I would think. Like, does that become what does next Monday look like for Black Monday?
Ooh. Well, that'll be a fun show.
Yeah. Who's gone in this league? And are there any surprises?
Still a week of football left to go. Some guys probably looking to salvage what's remaining. We'll see. We got to get to Amerks head coach Seth Appert. He's going to join us next, as you mentioned. Spent a couple of games behind the bench for the Sabres as Don Granado was feeling under the weather. We got to get his take on what that whole experience was like. We always say it. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when Seth Appert becomes an NHL head coach. Well, for a couple of games, he had that opportunity, and that had to have been exhilarating.
What, do you think he was like, Seth, can you come up and coach the Sabres? Sure. I just asked one thing. What's that? Do I have to do this radio thing with the guys in Rochester anymore? No.
Well, it's always good to get Seth on with us. He's always candid. We always appreciate his time. And he'll give us more than Bill Belichick gives his guys there at WEEI, I'm sure. Seth Appert, Rochester Americans head coach. Next, as we close up shop, last call on the way on the Fan Rochester.
Odyssey has sports for
The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Good to be back. How you doing? Good to be feeling better, that's for sure. Yeah, much better, thank you. Fortunate we have, we were able to have Seth come in and keep everybody in their spots and keep moving with some continuity.
Sabres head coach Don Granato. After a couple game hiatus, feeling a little bit better, we welcome in the guy who was behind the Sabres bench for a couple games last week, Seth Appert, who's big time now. I mean, I'm really surprised, Seth. Where do we start in thanking you for taking time out of your schedule to join us as you do every Tuesday? Really appreciate it. Walk us through how the last 7 days have been for you, man. That's got to be exhilarating.
Yeah, it was certainly a good experience and a little chaotic. Just trying to make sure everything was situated here. At the same time, trying to get there and make sure you've helped put their team in the right position to have a chance to win. Right. So, Kevin called early that morning and put me on notice that Donnie wasn't feeling good and this was a possibility. So that kind of hurried the rest of my work with our staff here in Rochester that morning to get them ready for Utica. Then I got the call a little bit later that morning saying they needed me up in Buffalo, and so I packed up and headed up to Buffalo to try to prepare for that.
Yeah, so you walk, and granted, many of these players, if not all of them, Seth. Do you feel like the substitute teacher there, Seth, where you want to go in and you want to kind of like at least put your fingerprints on it, but you don't want to push too hard? How is that whole dynamic?
Yeah, it's not my team, so. And we as an organization are very connected. We talk to their staff a lot. I talk to Kevin and Jason Carmanos a lot. So, when we're at training camp, Donnie has us involved. He has us running things. And so there is a familiarity and there's a connectivity because we play similar styles. I think that's my responsibility. That's not for me to decide some of those things. Donnie's the NHL head coach, and I want our guys to be prepared when they go up there. So that part of it was very comfortable. At the same point in time, there are some differences, and again, like I said, it's not my team. Like I'm not going to bench a player, or I'm not going to get into a guy, challenge him, because I'm only there for 2 days. So my role was to kind of lead the ship and make sure that everything stayed as smooth as possible and as normal as possible to give us a chance to win 2 games. Unfortunately, we only won 1. It would have been nice to win both.
All right, so before we get to the Amerks, I just got to get your take on what you experienced there with the Sabres. I mean, what did you see out of that team? What did you see out of the players? What are the weaknesses, the strengths? Where can the Sabres kind of turn things around here down the back half of this season and get into a position where we're talking about them being in the postseason?
Yeah, I think that, number one, it was exciting to see there's a good vibe in the room and on the bench. Because sometimes when you're going through adversity, as they're going through, you can lose that. And I really like the feel and the vibe of some of the key guys, of Dahlin, of Thompson, of Middlestad, of that crew of guys. Obviously, Okposo speaks for himself. I mean, what a fantastic leader he is and great human. But I did like the feeling in that regard, and that's important. So I think they're closer to getting it back to where they want it to be than maybe sometimes it feels. And when you're going through adversity, that happens. I think right now they're making the adversity they're going through is normal. Last year was probably better than expected, and what that does is it raises expectations, it puts more pressure, and it also they're not surprising anybody. Everybody knows they're very talented, and if you don't play great defense against them, they can put a big number against you. And teams have pride, and they don't want to let that happen. So this next step of going from being a pretty good team to trying to be a contending team, that's a harder step than the first step. And they're going through that right now. And they're very young, and there's natural growing pains that are coming with that. But I do think they're a lot closer than maybe people believe they are.
Okay, one more from me, Seth, and it's kind of a fun one. Did you have a welcome to the NHL moment in those 48 hours? I mean, players go out on the ice alone. Did they make you walk out on the bench alone? Was there that kind of moment for you?
There probably wasn't, but not in a bad way. It was a great experience. Sabres players and staff treated me outstanding, and I'm very appreciative of that. Like at the end of the day, I've coached a long time, and once you got back there behind the bench, it felt like you're just coaching another game. And they're better players, there's better opponents, and there's a bigger crowd, but I've coached in a lot of big games in front of a lot of big crowds in the past too. So, I think that the coolest thing was probably a couple of cool moments were number one, calling my wife and daughters and sharing that with them.
Yeah.
Hearing from my former players, that was probably my number one moment. Players I coached at Denver, at RPI, at the national program, guys I've coached here, Larry Pilot, Sean Malone, guys that are overseas now, guys I coached at Denver, that was over 20 years ago, some of those guys, right? So that was probably, the coolest moment for me. And then being on the bench with some guys that we've had here that were huge pieces of what we've been trying to build in Rochester, the Paterkas, Samuelsons, Quinner, Upi, guys like that were, just so important to helping create the culture that we've created here in Rochester.
And to that, let's talk a little bit about the guys that were, behind the bench for Rochester. You mentioned that game at Utica. You get the win in the shootout. Talk a little bit about Vinny and about Pacer and the job that they did while you were up with the Sabres.
Oh, it was awesome. I had zero worries, just like I didn't with Pex and Webby when there was COVID protocols and I was out. I think you hire a great staff and you empower them to do their jobs, and I think that's really, really important. And so I have Michael Pekka, Pex, Webby, Mersey before that, and now Vinny and Pacer. They're in front of our team all the time. They run meetings. They run parts of practice. I put a lot of responsibility on them. Same with our video coaches. And so when I leave, and I think that's the key thing in the goal you have as a coach, you create a culture. The culture isn't contingent on you having to be there. You want it to be so strong that whether you're here or not, the thing moves forward. And between the job that Vinny and Pacer and the rest of the staff did, the support staff, that goes to support staff as well. But then also your captains, Mersch, you just can't say enough about Michael Mersch, Ethan Prow, Brett Murray, Brandon Byro. We put Ethan Prow on the bench with Pacer and Vinny that night because he's injured right now. So just to have another voice, another presence, another leader for the guys. And I had full faith that they'd get the victory, and credit to them that they did.
Amerks are home Friday night against Cleveland, and we may have Eric Comrie in goal. He cleared waivers. You have a unique perspective here on this, Seth, because you were with Buffalo when the news came down. And have you talked to Eric since that point, since he cleared? Is he okay here to come to the Amerks? Yeah,
he practiced with us today. So he's excited. Similar probably like Bryson and, Tyson Jost. You want to be in the NHL, but it's not fun to be in the NHL and not play. So, these guys, they're smart. They know for the good of their career, they need to play, but also it's fun to play. It's not fun to be healthy scratch, to be in the stands the whole time. So, Eric's coming down with a great mentality, a great attitude. Obviously we have two very good goaltenders in Dustin Shikarsky and Devin Cooley. So we'll have to manage that. But Eric Comrie is an outstanding goaltender. He's a great person, a great teammate, and he gives us really, really quality experience at that position.
Talk a little bit about this weekend's opponent. It's a home and home with Cleveland as we host the Monsters on Friday night before we head over to Cleveland for a Saturday night tilt, and we know that this is a team that we're looking up at.
Yeah, they've been the best team in the league in our division all season long, and I thought they'd have a chance to be that at the beginning of the year, looking at the roster, looking at what they were returning, what they were having come in, how much talent was going to be on there, and they're playing like it. And we've had very good games with them. Obviously, we lost a really close game that I thought we played excellent in 2 weeks ago. We split with them in their building. So I like what we're doing right now. We needed to focus on defense a little bit more the last month, and we have. Our offense will come around. We'll start scoring more again, but this was necessary, and we went through this last year as well. You don't have a chance to play in April, May, and June unless you're a good defensive hockey team, and we became that last year. And I think over the last 8 to 10 games, we're playing very good team defense. We're limiting our opponent's chances, the expected goals, etc. And now we just have to mesh back in some of that explosive offense that has been a trademark of ours over the last couple of years, while still playing the quality defense that we've been fighting to be over the last month.
Well, Seth, I speak on behalf of Danger and a lot of other Amherst fans. We're very proud. Thank you for your time today. Great job this past weekend, and looking forward to Friday night. Thanks, Seth.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
There he is, Seth Appert, Rochester Americans head coach, stopping by the Fan as he does every Tuesday afternoon to give us a state of the Amherst, and in this case, a little state of the Sabres there as well. Nice to hear his perspective on his 2 games behind the bench there for Buffalo. That'll do it for this afternoon. We're back again tomorrow. We'll get you some winners from PJ Glasser, the host of BetQL's Send It In, Odyssey Sports Betting Insider. And we'll get you closer and closer to kickoff Sunday night, the Dolphins and the Bills. We'll have some previews of that coming up tomorrow as well on the Fan Rochester.
Odyssey has sports for every fan. Keep up with your favorite teams from across the country and get the inside scoop.